with the Karakia. Whakatakata hau ki te uru, whakatakata hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei Māori ora. And my phone's ringing. That's an excellent start to the day. Oh, it's Councillor Young. I'm going to assume that's apologies from Councillor Young and that she's running late. All right. I declare the meeting open. Please let me or a democracy advisor know if you're leaving the meeting, and please note that we are being live streamed. Hello, anybody who's joining us on the live stream this morning. I have apologies from Councillor Rush as he's attending the Wellington Water Committee meeting. And if I check my phone, I have, oh, can somebody please send Nicola Young the link to the Zoom meeting? Cyrus or Haiti, can you do that, please? Thank you. And Councillor Young is apparently on her way. So I'm going to move the motion that the CCO subcommittee accept apologies from Councillor Rush. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Sparrow. I now put the motion. Please vote accordingly. Councillor Sparrow, you've raised your hand rather than voting. Although I'm guessing that, there we go. I'm guessing that you weren't opposing accepting those. All right. That's unanimous. Thank you, Haiti. All right. Then do I have any conflict of interest declarations? I see none. We need to confirm the minutes of the past meeting from December. So I move the motion that the Council Controlled Organisation Subcommittee approves the minutes of the Council Controlled Organisation Subcommittee meeting held on 8th of April 2020. Is that the correct date for the last meeting?
No, sorry, it's the 3rd of December.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's cool.
2019.
So the meeting held on the 3rd of December 2019 haven't been circulated, and that they be taken as read and confirmed as an accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Foon, thank you. I now put the motion. Please vote accordingly.
Just waiting on Councillor Foon. Thank you, that's unanimous.
Lovely, thank you. I have no items not on the agenda and no public participation. Before we start on the items on the agenda, I'll invite the speakers from the following organisations. And I have a speaking order as follows, which is starting with the Basin Reserve Trust. And I see Cam is with us this morning. Hi, Cam. Do you want to come on in and get us started this morning? As I understand that you've all been invited to kind of present on particularly your response to COVID-19, how your organisations have been pivoting and those sorts of things. But we look forward to hearing all about how it's been going for you.
Yeah, look, thanks, Jenny, and hello, everybody. I'll just start with Q3 highlights. Obviously, it was a significant month of activity for the Basin Reserve. I guess the key highlight being the near completion of the museum stand / old pavilion. So I think just to thank the council, to acknowledge Warwick in particular, and also Danny for all of their hard work in overseeing the project, and obviously to also the council that attended the opening that we had on the first day of the test. We've had lots of positive feedback around the use of the stand in the game. And obviously, as an organisation, we're looking forward to moving into the offices very, very soon and having a permanent home at the base again. So that's a significant milestone, not only for the Basin Reserve Trust, for Cricket Wellington and for the Cricket Museum, but also obviously for the city in terms of the iconic nature of the ground and the stand. So yeah, just to thank everybody for their support and contribution towards that project. A busy period of activity in Q3. We had 2 women's T20 games, and those 2 internationals with the White Ferns built nicely into the ICC Women's World Cup launch event that we held that had some pretty esteemed dignitaries. The Prime Minister was there and obviously announced and launched the Women's World Cup, which is currently scheduled for February 2021. So exciting to be part of that event and to have that at the Basin. We also had the Black Caps test match against India, which was a fantastic event. That was the 100th test for New Zealand, so great that the Black Caps won that game. And then the other significant event during the quarter was obviously the Super Smash final. Pretty amazing to have two Wellington teams finishing top and the opportunity to have a double header final. We had a fantastic crowd of over 5,000 for that day, and the fact that both teams won it was obviously pretty significant as well. So yeah, lots of good activity, and you can see from our numbers that we were on track pre-COVID to have a really solid year in terms of our financial targets, but also in terms of our statement of intent KPIs. So COVID's clearly had an impact. I guess we've been more lucky than most in terms of the timing. We're at the tail end of the cricket season, and in the winter months we are and have started a significant redevelopment and improvement in the turf playing field. So we weren't hosting junior sport this winter. So I guess we've been able to manage that fairly well. We closed the ground during level 4. Unfortunately, it was a small degree of vandalism in the old pavilion, which we've since managed. That was a real disappointment. But yeah, the fact that we've had the turf renovation and the ground's been closed, we haven't been too impacted from a event delivery perspective. But clearly there's been a financial impact with things like the Noodle Night markets not going ahead and other revenue generating events, particularly our function centre, where we've had to sort of decrease, I guess, some of that activity. I guess it's looking ahead, and we're currently obviously revisiting the statement of intent and using the assumption set. But that's where there will be, I guess, issues for the trust in terms of potential of cancelled international cricket, the risk that the Women's World Cup doesn't go ahead. I guess a decrease in conference and functions, things like the Bears in the Basement and the Noodle Night markets not proceeding. And it also impacts our ability to attract a naming rights partner. We'd obviously had a number of conversations around that, and we were sort of quite excited to be in market with a venue that was no longer a construction site. So we're naturally disappointed that some of those opportunities may be lost in the short to medium term. But all in all, I think we've responded as well as what we could have through COVID-19. It really is the financial impact that we're needing to manage. We've been able to get through this financial year with a small loss, which takes effectively the loss equates to the lost income from those events that I touched on earlier, specifically the big one being the night markets, which has both a positive impact from a revenue perspective, but also a positive impact in terms of the number of people attending the venue. That's probably all, I think, to cover off from my perspective, and yeah, just happy to take any questions from the councillors.
Thanks so much, Cam. Yeah, I saw some pictures the other day of the basin with all the turf up, and it was looking like you were in the midst of lots of exciting work there. So,
yeah,
all right.
mound sand. It's amazing how much sand goes into a turf reconstruction.
Yeah, there you go. And had a delightful time getting to sit up in the new old stand when it was opened. It was, it's a great facility, so we're so happy to have it delivered. I've got questions from Councillor Sparrow, and then Councillor O'Neill, and then Councillor Foon.
Yep, thanks very much for that, Cam. Just in regard to the preparations for the, well, you're there somewhere still, you've disappeared from my screen. Preparations for the Women's Cricket World Cup, is everything on track, or have there been some problems or delays as a result of COVID-19?
No, so look, we've been forging ahead with planning. So we've been working closely with Wellington NZ. We've got a regional group set up across the city, and we've also got a venue group that's sort of in full swing and moving ahead with planning. I guess the challenge sits around the ability to actually bring the teams into the country. So our understanding is that the ICC are looking to make a decision in July. At this stage, we believe it's sort of 50-50 at best. But we're clearly hopeful that the event will go ahead. So yeah, we're very much taking a wait and see approach, but we're doing all we can in terms of our planning and preparation to ensure that if we do get the green light, we can obviously host the event. I guess we've got the added bonus of having the big game. We worked hard to try and secure Australia, New Zealand, and let's assume that there is a Trans-Tasman bubble and the event does go ahead. That obviously creates some good opportunities for the city in terms of tourism and the likes. We're quite excited about that opportunity if it does arise.
Okay, thank you. The second question is, there's mention of $845,000 up towards the $1 million funding target. It says that has been secured. Now, is that actually in hand, or is that some of that been promised? Is any of that under threat as a result of COVID-19?
Yes, good question. Unfortunately, some of the funding that we had secured was then cancelled. Some of it was secured through Class 4 funding, and some of the trusts needed to or haven't paid out on those grants. So it's effectively, I guess, being lost. So the actual amount secured and in our bank and transferred across to the City Council is $720,000. And that is a challenge for us in terms of that project now effectively concluding and our ability to raise funds through the lotteries and Class 4 trusts, I guess, not being an opportunity because they don't fund retrospectively. So we'll need to look at those things moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Hope that all works out well. My last question is, says you didn't know, or whoever didn't know, the anticipated cost of providing turf management in this financial year is likely to be $417,500. Can you explain why that, wasn't known or anticipated?
That was known and anticipated. Where have you? Yeah. So the way that the trust, I guess, uses, we've got a relationship with the stadium around turf services, and the cost of 417 was agreed and was budgeted. I guess, is that referring to maybe the turf renovation potentially? Where have you seen that?
I haven't got the page in front of me, but I've noted page 46, and I jotted down, didn't know the anticipated cost of providing. Maybe I read it wrongly, but if you did know it, that's all good. Yeah,
no, those are the annual turf service costs that we have with the stadium. I guess this year we've also had the costs of the renewal and the renovation as well, but all of those costs were budgeted for. There was an accounting variance of the turf renovation, which may be what you're picking up. I'm sorry, I don't have that information, but certainly the 417 was known and budgeted for.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sparrow. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Cam. My first two questions actually were said by Councillor Sparrow, so I'll go for a pretty open-ended one. What can Wellington City Council be doing to support you as we move into a new period of trying to get more and more people out to our basin and with tourism or marketing and the like?
Yeah, look, I guess we need to take stock of that ourselves. We've got our first trust meeting post-COVID-19 this Friday, and those are the sorts of things that we'll be looking at. So, you know, there are some I guess, opportunities around our event space and what that means, but we'll need to monitor that closely. Obviously, balancing off the impact of COVID-19 and people's desire to sort of attend corporate functions and events like that. But certainly during the summer, we will have a full domestic program of cricket. I think there's significant opportunity to position domestic cricket in a very positive way for the city. You know, it may be one of the few sort of key events that we can actually get people back in. The basin's well positioned in terms of being able to segregate people in sort of different lots with the built infrastructure that we have, as well as the embankment. So there are some positive things there. We're also working hard with New Zealand Cricket. The basin is, I guess, one of the lower cost venues for New Zealand Cricket to operate and to run international cricket from. So they are looking at fixtures against Australia, and we're trying to put ourselves in a positive position around those things. And we're obviously talking closely to our other event providers, be it the basin, night markets. We're not sure what will happen there, but we're staying very close to them. We're hopeful that those sort of key events we've established and that calendar of events that we've sort of set up and worked hard to get that diversification on over the last couple of years can be maintained at some level. But clearly there's lots of details to be known, and I guess like everybody on this call, we await I guess more information around what level 1 looks like.
Thanks, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Foon.
Hi, Cam. Well done on all you had pre-COVID. You know, I think the basin's really flipped around, and yeah, you were just short of gaining that key sponsor, but I'm sure you will get there. Just a couple of questions from me around the functions. Like, that's also been showed up to be a really great opportunity. So just, and you've just mentioned it, but what do you think was a key contributor to making those functions become an outstanding part for the basin? And secondly, is around your team health and well-being. I know that you're a small team, but how have you fared over the COVID lockdown, and how's your outlook together?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for that positive feedback. I guess with regards to the conferences, we obviously use Black and Gold to facilitate and to coordinate and market and promote and run those events for us. I think a big part of it has been, you know, the repositioning of the ground, the fact that it's had such a significant upgrade, the quality of the rooms, the iconic nature of the setting in terms of people being able to look out at the ground, and you know, it's clearly quite a special part of the city. So I think all those things have had a positive effect on our ability to significantly grow the conferences and functions. Clearly now we'll need to wait and see what happens in response to COVID. But I think the fact that the rooms are also relatively small maybe provides us with some opportunities. You know, we can host 10, 20, 30 quite comfortably and still have a nice intimate sort of setting. So, you know, we'll wait and see on that. In terms of your other point, yeah, look, thanks for asking. Obviously slightly different in that the Basin Reserve Trust contracts Cricket Wellington. So it's effectively Cricket Wellington staff that manage the ground on behalf of the trust. I guess we're more fortunate in terms of the timing from a cricket perspective. Cricket Wellington over the last couple of years has been able to turn things around financially and build some reserves. So we're at this stage have committed to all of our staff through until March, and apart from 3 roles that we've disestablished, which were sort of more sort of support, sort of junior roles, we've been able to maintain most of our staff. The staff are in really good spirits. We've sort of been nomads a little bit around the venue and sort of you know, in a rabbit's warren all over the venue. So the fact that we're coming back together and moving into the basin and having a new office in the old pavilion has been really great from a cultural perspective. So we're looking forward to getting in there as soon as possible. As you can see, I'm still working from home, so we've sort of used the opportunity of the new office move as the catalyst to get everybody back in the building and back together again. So, you know, the staff are in pretty good spirits, all things being considered.
Great, Cam, thanks for that. And I cycled through this morning, so yeah, I was thinking about you all. So yeah, my first day back too. Good luck. Thank you.
You saw all the mounds of sand in?
Yeah, I did. I didn't feel like playing in there at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Foon. Do we have any more questions, councillors? Councillor Young.
So first of all, sorry about the technical problems. I'm giving you all vertigo as I was trying to sort my screens out. I'm running on one screen, so I'm looking a bit, it's a bit odd. Anyway, the question I have is, during COVID, of course, there was a lot of graffiti around the city because it wasn't considered to be important. And I saw quite a bit on the museum stand. Do you have a special anti-graffiti paint on that, or do you just have to rely on it being painted out? Because it is a problem in that part of town, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I'll need to find out and come back to you on that one. But certainly we do move quickly to obviously tidy up graffiti. We're unfortunate there was a little bit of vandalism. Someone actually broke into the old pavilion, which was a real shame. But the damage wasn't too significant, and we're able to get onto it pretty early and get it tidied up and secured, obviously. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'll need to come back to you on the specific question around the paint. But okay. Certainly, as soon as there is. We've got a staff member that's pretty vigilant. He's at the ground every day and you know, obviously checks and makes sure that vandalism is tied up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, he or she does really well. Just wondered about the paint. Thank you.
Yeah, no, good question. I'll find out.
All right, that's time for us, Cam. So thank you so much for coming and joining us this morning, and for all the work that you and the team have been doing during a really difficult time. You know, we really appreciate it. So nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Next on my speaking list, I have Karori Sanctuary Trust. So I've got Chief Executive Paul Atkins, and the chair is Philip Meyer. I can't quite see you, Philip, but I'm assuming that is Philip and not somebody else.
Yes, it is, Jenny.
Good morning, Philip. So over to you. Give us your update and presentation. We look forward to it.
Kia ora, Jenny. Thank you very much indeed. Kia ora, everybody. So I'll just give you a very, very quick update on where we are now. The Q3 report indicated a very strong quarter right up to the point of lockdown. In fact, it had been a great summer, and we'd enjoyed great visitation, a very significant increase in the number of people on guided tours, which has multiple benefits to everybody. And so actually our Q3 report, I think, is a great story, despite the fact that the last week of that was under lockdown. During lockdown, the team were extremely productive, and some of you may be aware that we launched a Google Earth tour of Zealandia. If you haven't seen that, I'm very happy to send you the link, but you can get it on Google Earth. We've launched a whole suite of education materials online for various levels of ages of young people. And again, those are all available off our website. But all of those were created and put up online as part of some great work that went on during lockdown. All the benefits, I think, of testing in the real world, working remotely, which means now we're all very confident about doing it and doing meetings like this. Obviously, some of the other things that went on during lockdown was a complete review of all our plans. And it will come as no surprise to any of you that planning in an environment of such extraordinary uncertainty really is interesting. And I'll come on to our SOI and plans for the coming year in just a few moments. I did just want to say a couple of words about what's happening right now. Since we've come out of level 3 into level 2, you'll all be aware that Zealandia has been open again. We opened for the first couple of days to members only, which was fabulous. And one of the things that has been a real joy is seeing so many people coming in and just having a great time, really, really loving the place. Since then, of course, we've been open to the public, and thank you to the council for your proposal to us to open, to make access no cost up until the end of June. It's been a fabulous initiative. We've had 13,000 people through in May, and when you think that May only started in the middle of May, people have, the system has worked beautifully. People, anecdotally, I can tell you that people are loving it, and lots and lots of families coming in. So it's been a great, great initiative. So all up at the end of May, we had 15,000 visitors, just over 2,000 of those were members, and around about 13,000 of those were non-members, general public. But when you think that these are Wellingtonians predominantly, so it's a great thing for the city. So thank you. So general projections out to the end of the year, we've only got 4 weeks to go. Seems extraordinary. But you know, we will be fine through to the end of the year. We had a great summer, and all our projections, whilst we will be slightly down on some of our key indicators that we've been tracking very well against up until the end of March, none of that is any cause for concern. Just very quickly coming on to 2021. We've completely rewritten or redrafted the statement of intent and the budget that sits alongside that. That has been submitted now. Councillors, you will all be getting that in due course. But what that shows, of course, is that the next 3 years, of course, will be impacted. We've made assumptions that are entirely consistent with the assumptions in the letter of expectation, or the revised letter, Jenny, that you sent us. That is that there will be no international visitors or to speak of for the whole of the coming financial year. It's a very sensible assumption to make because it means we can't get a lot worse than that. What we do have to do now, what we are doing, is completely pivoting our marketing to a domestic market. We're reviewing and revising our guided tour products, for example, to a domestic market. What this really means is the narrative is less about explaining about the natural history of New Zealand and more about explaining why this place is of such huge value to New Zealand. So it's about pivoting the narrative rather than the whole business. So that is well underway, and we are confident that will go well, but there is going to be a hit on visitation. 40% of our total paid admissions, typically in a typical year, are international visitors. So naturally it will have an impact. So naturally what we've done is we have revised all our plans to accommodate that shortfall in revenue as a consequence of shortfall in visitation. That means that we will be going slow on some previously planned projects. We will be going slow on some things that we had got an expenditure item in the budget for, but now we don't need, we can actually go slow on it without it impacting on significant numbers of people. And there will be one or two things we need to rearrange. One or two capital projects that, again, none of which will be cancelled, but all of which we will just put on hold for the moment until we have a greater clarity regarding cash flow through the year. I should just stress again that we will be applying very, very much an adaptive management style. Simply the best way to deal with the level of uncertainty that we have in the system, all of us have in the system, is to make what we feel are the best assumptions at this stage, and then be really agile and adaptive as we move forwards. And we are absolutely confident that we can do that, and that we can maintain a healthy, vibrant organisation for the city and for the country. So we're happy about that. So thanks, Jenny.
Thank you so much, Paul. I've got a question from Councillor O'Neill. Way you go, Councillor O'Neill, and then Councillor Young. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Paul. I just wanted to give a bit of a mihi to the amount of amazing work that yourself, your team and your rangers have done stimulating people. I've personally found a lot of the content that you're sharing is something that sort of brightened lockdown for me in my bubble. I was wondering if you could expand on transitions that you might be having around marketing to talking about the Eco Sanctuary as a place in Wellington and a place of importance for domestic tourism. Could you expand a little bit on that?
Yes, thank you, Terry. We're working very closely with Wellington, New Zealand, with obviously the tourism industry more broadly across the whole country. We're also in discussion quite closely with other environmental organisations. Some of those are fence sanctuaries, some of them are not, some of them are other types of environmental organisations, ranging from north of Auckland right down to Wellington. And we're in discussion regarding the kind of messaging we can put out there, both collectively and individually, about people coming to visit and explore their own natural history, their own country in terms of what it has to offer. We're looking at the teaming up in terms of that narrative, so that there's the possibility of people visiting different types of environmental organisations. In terms of Wellington, absolutely. Our discussions with Wellington, New Zealand are close and, as you can imagine, and so very, very much taking a close, joined up view. In terms of specific initiatives, those are still being worked through. But I think that the evidence that we have from the last couple of weeks is that people are actually really, really keen to get out. They're really keen to get out with their families. And so I think there's huge opportunity here for us to be offering tour packages, offering accessibility in ways that attract those people. But definitely discussions underway with all those key operators. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Young.
So thank you. You know, I started off very jaundiced about Zealandia and you have completely transformed my view, although I'm still not interested in wildlife. But I love having the birds in my garden. So having been honest about that, I'm just curious actually, and this is not a political question, but I'm just interested. How long does the appointment of a patron last?
Okay, so thanks, Nicola, and thank you for your comment earlier. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Patrons, there is no time frame on the appointment of a patron or vice patron. It is until as such time as it's felt either they wish to step down or you know, we wish to appoint another one. So the short answer is there is no specified time frame in our constitution.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicola.
Councillor Foon, and then I have Councillor Sparrow.
Great, thanks Paul and Philip. Yes, just thank you once again for all the work you've done for Wellington City and being a real beacon for us. Just a couple of questions on, you were just talking about possible just slowing down of plans. Council did have some money allocated in our annual plan for Zealandia. Is that one of the projects that you might look to slow down at all, or are they aligned? And second question there is around membership. I just want to congratulate you on also utilising that as a space for growth. Is there an opportunity there as well to yeah, just help with a little bit of income on growing those membership numbers?
Thanks, Laurie. I appreciate those questions. The first question, no, that is not one of the projects that we are actively slowing down. The funding that was in the long-term plan that has been there for a couple of years now is for capital, and it's for the building of Tanglewood House. Plans for that are still underway, and we are, and it is continuing through process of detailed planning, building consent, etc. So the answer to that is that has not been shelved. No. The comment regarding membership, I think, is a really, really pertinent one, because I think part of we've had a project that's been in the planning for a couple of years now regarding membership and changing the essence of our membership from a benefits-based membership to a sort of value and cause-based membership, a supporter-based really, that doesn't necessarily have to be only local people who can visit. And so what has occurred now has further stimulated that movement. And so the answer to your question is an emphatic yes, it is a great opportunity. And we're very, very keen to further increase our supporter base and expand our supporter base on the basis of people getting a greater understanding of what they're supporting anyway through our messaging. So yes, absolutely, Laurie, thank you.
I'm sure you won't have any trouble at all with that.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sparrow.
Yep, thanks again, Paul. Just a quick question, and that is, while the access is free, or to Zealandia is free until the end of June, I think that's correct, is it?
Correct. Thanks, Malcolm. Yes, it is.
Do you think that that might also have the effect of, if everyone capitalises on that at this stage, or a lot of people do, that it might mean fewer numbers of people attending over the next few months, or do you not think that might not have that effect at all?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Malcolm. Thank you. I think that I think what that indicates is the level of uncertainty in the system, and that scenario is definitely a possible scenario. In fact, it's one of so many scenarios that we've stopped building scenarios on scenarios, if you'll forgive me for saying that. I think that we feel pretty confident that that people will do value what we have to offer, and that people will continue to visit. We'll feel pretty confident that for a number of people, they will find membership attractive because they can visit any number of times they like once they have membership, and actually it's great value. So whilst I am sure the visitor numbers will drop in July, because typically they would anyway over July and August in the middle of winter, I'm reasonably confident that we can maintain a good base of visitation and that will pick up again. But yes, your point is well made. There are so many uncertainties in the system at the moment that as I said earlier, we are just going to maintain a really agile, adaptive style.
Yeah, thank you for that. My next visit with my wife and I, perhaps we'll leave it until August, because I'm sure we can afford it more than some of the families who are making the most of their free opportunity this month. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thanks. I'm going to ask a quick question, Paul, which is, what's going on with the perch eradication project? Is that still going ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. Yes, it is, but it's seasonally dependent. So this is one of the extraordinary projects that we had to put on hold because we were all ready to go. In fact, we were about to bring in significant number of contractors to get going, and so had to postpone it all. However, all the work, all the planning, all the consents we've got will carry through, and we will simply restart the project again in early 21, and it will go through just a year later. The reason for that is the seasonality, and it's important to do it at the right time of year. So we can't do it at just any old time. But yes, it will be going ahead. It definitely has not been cancelled or put on hold beyond that seasonal requirement.
Thanks, Paul. That's really interesting. We've got the project at Nio Gorge Slope Stabilisation is a similar one where we've had to delay it because of the lizard seasonality. We have to look after the lizards, and we missed our window, so we have to now wait until later in the year before we can start that. So totally understand that sometimes these things, when you miss the window, you just have to wait until it comes around again. Councillors, were there any further questions? I don't see any hands. I've got one more, which I guess is Paul, what are you seeing as kind of the biggest risks that you're going to be dealing with over the next 12 months?
So I could pick up on that if I may. Jenny, perhaps I could pick up on that because the board has worked closely with management on all those scenarios that Paul referred to, but also looking after the risks to the balance sheet and to the business. And what we are fortunate in that we've started off with a healthy balance sheet. We've built a healthy balance sheet over recent times, and we've maintained that. Through the lockdown period and through all of the disruption around COVID-19, our message has been to the staff that we're going to look after the balance sheet, but we're going to look after our people as well. And we're going to look after our people first. So we're using the balance sheet as a sort of a shock absorber so that we can look after our people. And that's best indicated by the cost to income ratio blowing out from 58% to 78%, which is really an unsustainable long-term level, but it'll work its way back progressively under 70% and then back under 60 over the next couple of years. Fortunately, we've got adequate cash and adequate working capital, and we've looked forward through the next, the 2021 year, and we'll very likely complete that year, hopefully at least break even, and with adequate working capital at the end of that year. We've also looked into the 2022 year to see what the stresses on the business are then, and it's been quite an exercise when you lose such a large proportion of your revenue to continue to maintain the business in a sustainable, profitable way. But we're confident we've done that, and we can say to you that the board is confident that, and the management team are confident that the business is in good shape, and the risks have all been re-examined at the last board meeting and updated, and we have responses and mitigations in place for them all.
That's great. Thanks for that, Philip. You know, we've got similar issues at council where we're running on our balance sheet and cost to income's going up. So we completely understand where you're at and trying to balance those issues. So thank you very much for that. Any further questions? I don't see any. So thank you very much, Paul and Philip, for coming in and for all the hard work from you and the team over the lockdown. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks for council's support. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. We'll dial that now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Next on my speaking list, I have the cable car, Wellington Cable Car Truck. And I've got, we've got the new chief executive and the chair, Annie Matthews. Is it Caesar or Cesar Piotto?
Caesar, Jenny.
Caesar. Nice to meet you, Caesar. Welcome along this morning.
Thank you.
And over to you.
Cheers. Thank you, Councillor. I'll kick off first of all, as you've done, by welcoming Caesar. So Caesar's been with us now as chief executive for a month, which is great to have you on board, Caesar. So another welcome from a council perspective to the council family. Look, and obviously Caesar's come on board at what is an extremely challenging time. And when you look at the information provided within the report, you'll see that from a broader perspective, if you look at the 18-19 year, you'd probably say was one really out of the box. We had a full tourist season. We had a very good year, and I think even outside of COVID, we would have been very challenged to meet the performance in terms of numbers that we achieved in the 18-19 year. That said, what you've seen in the 3 quarters and with March in particular, you started to see the drop off coming through in terms of passenger numbers, and then obviously as lockdown hit, significantly more drop off and through to the closure of the cable car. So challenging times and challenging and uncertain times ahead for the cable car as we look forward to obviously a quieter winter season naturally, but in terms of what will happen into the summer, and particularly around the cruise ship season, which traditionally has been a significant reliance for passenger numbers through that period. So look, you know, Caesar and his team are doing a lot to look at how we're going to manage that going forward. From a an overall company position, we're fortunate that the company is in a very strong financial position. For those of you who aren't aware, the policy of the company in recent years has not to return a dividend into council, but to retain the earnings, because the cable car actually is a profit-making entity. So what happens is that it retains those cash reserves to pay for future asset investment, which we know we've got coming up in the next 5 to 10 years. So what it will mean in the meantime is that the cable car will have to draw down on some of those cash reserves to meet its operational requirements, and that we've furnished a new SOI, an amended SOI, which shows the impacts of those things going into 1920. But I'll hand over to Caesar to talk a little bit more about the operational aspects and what we're doing with the cable car itself. Cheers, Caesar.
Thanks, Andy, and kia ora, everyone. I guess from my end, 1 month into the role, in many ways it was perhaps the best time to start, because I could get my head around some of the operational details without having thousands of people coming on the cable car from cruise ships and dealing with some of those operational challenges. But since we've moved to alert level 2, we've been operational, and I guess I want to start with a feel-good point. We've had probably the busiest weekend as many of other businesses in Wellington, but Sunday saw us reach revenues of circa 80% of this time last year. So it's amazing what some good weather and a really strong message out to the community. Come and visit your backyard, support local businesses, explore your own assets around the city, and that is certainly the case. I tried to go to Zealandia, Paul, and I couldn't get a car park all day. So it was really kind of a silver lining in what has been some grey skies. The team's doing incredibly well. We keep engaged. We're running operationally 2 teams just to be prudent and be able to adapt and adjust to any unforeseen hiccups should they arise. We've also responded with kind of a bit of a revision on operational times and how we run. So we've shortened operational times, but we haven't received any feedback, and we feel like we're servicing all the supply that we're able to give to the community is matching demand at the moment, but that is constantly reviewed. And I guess finally, we wait in anticipation to what level 1 restrictions or guidelines may be. One of the biggest challenges for us is that the cable car is quite small. So when you apply social distancing, we lose in excess of 60% of our seating capacity. So we mitigate that by running quick trips. So as soon as it's full, we run up and down. But when social distancing is no longer part of our vernacular, we might be able to accommodate a few extra people. So I guess that's it from me, and welcome any questions at this point.
Thanks, Caesar, and I love the positive attitude silver lining that I would have thought starting in the middle of a pandemic would be a pretty challenging first month, but if you think it was the best time to start, then that's great.
It was the only time that I got given.
Absolutely. And I think I agree with you, the work that's been going on from Wellington NZ around Love Local and encouraging people out into the community, and that's been supported by the council, has been really fantastic. So it's great to hear that that's flowing onto the cable car as well. All right, I've got questions from Councillor Sparrow, Councillor Young, Foon and Foster.
Yep, thanks for that, Susan. It's good to hear that local people are accessing the cable car, enjoying assets like this in our backyard. Now, I've got a couple of questions. I don't fully understand this business that is the mention of the buses bringing cruise ship passengers have stopped discharging passengers on Lambton Quay outside the cable car, and that has affected, obviously when the cruise ships were operating, that has affected the number of people from overseas visiting. Now, is this a permanent change? And presumably it is of concern, the alteration of the change of the bus stop, and what is being done in regard to this if it is of concern?
Yeah, it's thank you for the question, Councillor, and it's something that we've reinitiated discussions with council officers on around how we might look at that. There's discussion with our transport teams about the location of it, and it's not just the location. I think that what's been interesting is that as the change of location itself isn't the point, but it's also a change in terms of the order of stops in that. And so where it's changed means that people who might suddenly jump off beyond a cruise ship, and effectively what was happening is the cable car was the first place it was going to. And so there was sort of a first mover advantage, if you like, that the cable car was getting. So, and it's, I think it was unclear when it was moved what the impact of that may have been. It's reasonably considerable, so we'll be working with the council transport and urban design teams about whether there's a way which we can amend that over the coming months.
Okay, thank you for that. I hope it all works out for the best again, which of course you do too. My other question is, the report says we're thinking about opportunities to encourage cable car use by domestic tourists when the time is right. Well, I guess we're coming into the period when the time is right. So what action is being taken in regard to encouraging domestic tourists? Presumably outside Wellington you're talking about.
Nothing like writing something and then having a pandemic drop on your lap. I think the initiatives that have already been initiated, Councillor, is really looking at curating the experience right from the cable car lane and all of the things that you can do once you reach the top. And being active as when people who are our local citizens or Wellingtonians or people who are travelling through to Wellington, they're doing the research on mobile devices. So being active in that consideration set and being able to present a really attractive proposition to spend not just 5 minutes up and down the cable car, but a half a day and connect on through to Zealandia or Space Place, or take a walk in the gardens, have a snack, have a meal, explore what Kelburn has to offer. So it's different in the sense that cruise ship passengers are time pressured. They have an exit and a return time, whereas our local and domestic market are slightly different. So we're trying to develop some cooperative type approach to what we can offer the market.
Yep, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Hi, Caesar. Welcome to Wellington. A bit of a change from Queenstown. Our hills are a bit smaller than your mountains. So just, I was going to ask about the cruise ship. That's great. So I've got two questions for you. One's really for Andy, and one is for you, Caesar. So I'll start with the one for Andy because I love the way he speaks to councillors, which I will miss when he goes. So the cable car is a separate company because, of course, it used to be the cable car plus the overhead bus wires, which have gone. So now it's just the cable car. So is there still any merit in having it as a separate company rather than just being part of council?
Yeah, sure. Look, it's something that we've revisited a number of times, and I think it's right to continue to revisit that on a periodic basis. At the moment, the view is that I suppose two things: the the specific engineering requirements that are required of the of a transport related network are quite specific, and there is some benefit in having that focus both from a specific engineering and a health and safety perspective, having it as its own entity. And probably without going into a lot of detail, the other key point is that it's an extremely lean organisation, and so there's not a significant amount of benefit from a financial efficiency perspective of incorporating into others. And then I suppose on the other side of the coin, the key thing to do is to make sure that if we're going to maintain it as a separate entity, that the cohesion that CSER talked about previously with our other CCO entities is really important. And so that's a particular focus, and CSER already in his role has had close contact with Wellington NZ, with Zealandia, and with our other
2 meters apart, I hope.
What's that? Of course.
2 meters apart, yeah.
Like this, councillor.
Yeah. So thank you. That's interesting, and I'm glad you got your eye on it. So the other one is, so CSER, what you don't know is, so I'm an inner city councillor, I'm Lambton ward, so the cable car is in my ward, as is Kelburn. And in fact, I grew up in Mount Victoria and in Kelburn, so I know the cable car very well. And a former chair, I asked him about the gold card, because he told me that the cable car couldn't afford people using the gold card. And I said, well, I will organize a demonstration by all the people over the age of 65 in Kelburn. And he said, well, they're just an entitled bunch of ... So I just thought I would ask you, is there any plan to stop using the gold card on the cable car? Or can I stand down from my plans to organize a demonstration?
Thanks for posing such an interesting question. My first time around, and I'll try to understand what ... was intended to mean.
I'll tell you when I see you.
Thank you. Look, at this point, I understand that the rules around gold card had changed, and some caps and some funding. I can look at, there is no, I guess, current plan to eliminate the gold card from travelling. We do need to, I guess, revisit the opportunities for directing them to off-peak travel and ensuring that everyone's experience is maintained as high as possible. We're not, I guess, having over demand during especially the morning peak rush and the afternoon peak rush.
Yeah, and for those,
when of course they can't use it anyway.
Yeah. For those councillors who are unaware, the issue with that is that the funding that the cable car receives to cover those gold card trips is capped, and so we run out of that reasonably about partway, just over halfway, 2/3 of the way through the year, and effectively after that, the cable car itself is funding those trips. So that's
hence you're being a lean organisation, Andy.
Correct, councillor.
So with the Waiheke ferry, which of course, you know, I mean, I know people who've got houses worth millions in Waiheke, and they zoom backwards and forwards to Auckland for nothing, which I think is interesting. I mean, you know, Kelburn is not Waiheke, but is the Waiheke ferry topped up by Auckland Council? I suppose you don't necessarily know.
Yeah, we'd have to look into that. Look, and our
I can Google it.
Yeah, our costs in terms of that extends to thousands, but not hundreds of thousands of dollars, councillor. So at the moment, it's something that we'll be continuing to operate under and support to keep everybody happy.
Thank you. That's it.
That sounded like a stand down, councillor. Councillor Foon.
Kia ora, CSER, and actually Malcolm got to my question about the tour buses, but just a quick question, to more of a personal note.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We have lost sound.
Oh.
Okay, you're not hearing Councillor Foon. Are you hearing anybody? It doesn't seem like it.
It was working.
The joys of technical difficulties.
Do you think my question blew a gasket?
That
Yeah,
must be what it was.
probably.
Can we use the chat box momentarily?
Unfortunately, the chat box is the chat is disabled
Disabled.
during a public meeting.
All right.
It looks like they're just going to pop. They've just popped out, and maybe they will pop back in and see if they get it working again. Oh, we've got
There we
Andy
go.
coming in on a different device. Can you hear us now? Andy and Caesar, are you able to hear us now?
We can, thank you. We've just come in on a different device. So
Yes.
apologies for that. Some technical difficulties there.
These things happen.
That distancing is dodgy now. Okay, look, Caesar, just quickly, more of a fun one. Would you, if you'd have known that a pandemic was going to hit in your brand new role, would you have taken the role? And second question is about your team. I'm not sure how many team the cable car have got, but how are you all faring, and what is the outlook of the team or the feel going forward?
Look, great question. Absolutely. I think we jumped at the opportunity to leave the metropolis of Central North Island and join Wellington. And the team is faring really well. And thank you for the question around it and the concern. I was able to interact a little bit prior to arrival, but they were super excited to come back. And there's an enormous bond to the cable car, and they just love the fact that they're back in it and taking people up and down. They understand some of the struggles, and we're really using this time now to look at how we reinvent ourselves and what can we do different, and really break some of the, I guess, molds that we've been in. And when you're running with your head down because cruise ship after cruise ship or international tourists are coming, you're really focused in the moment, whereas we can now look at our horizons a little bit further out. So they're excited to look at some of that strategy stuff.
And just on that note too, Councillor, it's worth acknowledging the great work of Stephen Ward, who took the role as acting CE after Simon Fleischer's departure, and obviously did a great job in terms of maintaining the welfare of the team and positivity as we work through the initial phases of COVID. So I'd like to probably acknowledge Stephen's work in that space as well.
Great. And Caesar, I really like what you're saying about the whole experience and being able to reflect on that, and just note, your other partners in the room, the Wellington Museums Trust, Wellington NZ and Zealandia. You've got a good lot of assets or great organisations around you to help get cable car as one of the central organisations for Wellington as well. Thank you for your work. Welcome.
Ka pai, thank you.
And Mayor Foster.
Look, thanks, Councillor Condi, and Cesar, welcome from me as well to Wellington. Great to have you here, and brilliant timing.
Thank you. Yeah.
I dare say it would have been tough wherever you were, though. To be fair, Queenstown would have been particularly difficult, I think. Look, some questions. So first of all, I just share Laurie's delight about the collaborative work between the different CCOs. I think it's fantastic. So questions, just on the, probably it's for you, Andy, first one, the gold card, just following that through. As a matter of principle, that's something which really, there was some discussion through GW, I'm going to say probably 6 years ago or thereabouts, when government threatened to put a ceiling on the amount or a cap on the amount that they paid for the gold card. And all the regional councils, the entire country pushed back and said, it's your scheme, you fund it. And at that stage, the government backed off. So somewhere, somehow, it feels like they have then surreptitiously unbacked off. Was there a particular time at which something changed and they actually said, no, that's it, we're capping it, and our scheme becomes your yet another unfunded mandate?
yeah, the difference there, Mayor Foster, is the fact that the cable car doesn't come under under PTOM, the public transport operating model, and so there are different provisions that apply to the cable car. And just on that note, there's been discussions in the past about the suitability of the public transport operating model for the cable car itself. And when we've reviewed that in the past, it's been clear that there are reasonably significant pros and cons for that, particularly given the it's both a transport service and a tourism venture. So they have different needs and requirements in terms of and how they necessarily need to be funded. So it's something that we continue to look at.
Well, that was leading on to my second question, which was going to be exactly around that, whether we are going to rethink the way in which this relates more to the Metlink system than anything else, because that's a live question in the minds of certainly of the regional council.
Yeah, and look, I think as we come out of COVID and look at what we need to do to continue to ensure the strength of the offering that the cable car provides, that's something that we'll also revisit.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, and look, the last one was, and here I'm asking for the horrible crystal ball because none of us quite know what that's going to look like. But given that roughly 50% of the patronage was from cruise ships aren't going to be around for a little while. And the intent was to use the surpluses that the cable car company was making to be able to fund the capital replacement of the cars in about 5 or 6 years' time. Obviously, that must be somewhat endangered. So, can you just talk us through what your thinking is around that and how that's going to work? Whether we can eke out more time on the cars themselves, or whether, hey, we're going to have to do it. Something's got to change somewhere.
Yeah, I suppose it's a question for how long. That is the crystal ball question, because in the interim, with our current forecasts are based around no cruise ships this coming season, right, Caesar. So and that has a reasonably significant flow on effect into our revised statement of intent with significant cash losses forecast. But all things considered, we would hope that over the following year we could return to a cash positive position, and with current reserves circa $4 million, and looking at a potential cost somewhere in the region of 10 million over the next sort of 10 years. We'd envisage that we're reasonably positive that we can manage those requirements around the cars, etc., and manage that infrastructure requirement as we recover. I suppose the one thing that potentially we need to keep an eye on that is making sure that we're retaining the resilience requirements of the tunnels and those things that are obviously ongoing, and maintaining those bits and pieces as well. So that's another question, but probably a little bit of both. It'll be a little bit of re-looking at our asset management plan, and Caesar's already been working on that in the short term to look at maintenance requirements and ensuring we're doing everything that's a health and safety perspective. But those things that were maybe we were bringing forward, we can sort of push back a little bit and manage that in line with the cash reserves. So with all possible, not to cause a draw on council.
Okay, that's the key thing. So it's a matter of the timing and the period over which things are going to be paid for at this stage, anyway. No, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Sparrow had another question.
Yeah, that was just following on the SCOG card business, very much self-interest. I used the Waiheke Island ferry about, just under 18 months ago, saved $45 on that, but that was a free fare for myself. My wife had to pay $45, but perhaps a cable car could be looking at even a reduction of 25%. Doesn't have to be free, 25%, 50% for gold card holders. Perhaps that's worth looking at if that's what's not already been happening, rather than 100%.
I'll organise that demonstration.
Thank you. You don't have to respond. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Caesar and Andy. We really appreciate all the work, and Caesar, welcome to the family and the whānau, and thanks for everything that you've been doing in really unusual circumstances in your new job. It's great to have you here. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you, Vu.
Thank you.
All right, we were scheduled to have a break at 11 o'clock, but I've had a request to bring it forward. So I'm going to propose that we take a 10-minute break now, and then we will come back at 10:50 with the Wellington Museums Trust. Hello, Pat and Jackie. Sorry, I realise you've just joined us, and now we're pretty much going to take a break before we come to you. But I think if somebody needs the bathroom, then they need the bathroom. So we'll take a 10-minute break now. I'll remind everyone that the live stream will be on, so you can make sure that you're muted and you turn your cameras off. And I'll see you back here in 10 minutes at 10:50. Kia ora.
Could have probably rigged that up.
Okay, how are we doing? I'm counting councillors. 1, 2, 3 have got their videos back on. I'll give Nicola a moment to see if she's coming back to join us.
She started organising her demonstration, I think. So
Oh, that will be it.
yeah, her mind's elsewhere.
I hope everyone had a chance to have a refuel or fill up your cup of tea or coffee. Yes, good, good.
Earlier, I used expired milk and I didn't realise. It's a great way to start the day.
Well, we'll check in on how you're feeling later this afternoon or tomorrow, Councillor O'Neill? Fingers crossed. All right, since Councillor Young is back, let's get started again. Heidi or Cyrus, are we live and streaming and ready to go?
We are.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, everyone, welcome back, and welcome to, as I said, Pat Stewart and Jackie Lloyd are here from Wellington Museums Trust as our next presenters. Thanks so much for joining us, ladies, and we really look forward to hearing about how it's all been going for you lately.
Kia ora, and very nice to be here. I'm joined by, as you mentioned, Chair, Pat Stewart, and also Sarah. Rushholm is actually in the corner there too. Kia ora, everyone. We are going to focus firstly on Q3, our Q3 results. I'll cover those and FY20 forecast, and then Pat will take over and talk through the year ahead and the go forward position. I would like to firstly acknowledge Pat, because this is Pat's last meeting with you. Pat has had over 12 years amazing service with Experience Wellington Museums Trust, and leaves us with some sadness that actually the business and of Experience Wellington has been so impacted by COVID-19, like many other organisations. But we're really excited to wish Pat a fine farewell, and we will be very shortly announcing the new chief executive. So watch this space. So I'm not sure if you wanted to touch on Pat's service at this stage, Jenny, acknowledge that, or will I carry on?
Yeah, so it would be great just to acknowledge, thank you, Pat, so much, and thank you for agreeing to stay on a little bit longer during this period, because I know that's you've agreed to stay on a little bit longer to help us through the COVID-19 and all the uncertainty, and having you around and your experience and background with the organisation is just a great thing, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny, and that's exactly right. To be able to have Pat's experience through this period of time, oh, there's a thumbs up, has been really comforting to the board, because we certainly have some challenging times ahead of us. I'd also like to acknowledge the team at Experience Wellington. I mean, they have really stepped in and stepped up into extraordinary circumstances nobody ever envisaged where we would be today, and certainly all of our risk management. We actually, I think, almost had pandemic there, not quite, but never envisaged a complete lockdown. But look, let me just focus initially on the first year. So if we could go to slide 1. As at Q3 for this year, as at 31st of March, we were actually doing really well. We were so annoying. We were on track to achieve budget and all of our performance targets. I mean, the board was very proud of the organisation, the way visitation was tracking. Trading revenue has been extraordinary this year. The year before we had the blunt umbrella and a suffrage promotion with the scarves, etc., which we thought was going to be an unbeatable financial revenue perspective, but actually the team we're doing so well and exceeding that this year. Non-council revenue was on track, and although our Q3 results do show a negative financial position, that's an issue of timing. So we do see that, and our intention was to actually achieve budget, which was going to be about, pretty much break even, an $11,000 loss. Next slide, thank you. The year-end forecast is pretty different though, and it would be fair to say that we are all very concerned about the financial viability of the organisation going forward, and particularly looking forward to working with council about how we resolve our way through that. For the run out of this financial year, we really have been saved by the wage subsidy. That's the words I'm looking for. The wage subsidy has been very helpful, 800k as you'll see there, and also a deferral of the council rental. For year end, we're looking about a $100,000 deficit. Just like everybody, it's very difficult to predict going forward, but that's our best estimate at this stage. That will touch on the what we're projecting for the SOI for next year, and as I mentioned, that is certainly an area of concern for us. But it is what it is. We were on track for a fantastic year, and sadly, as I said, like for many other organisations, it's not going to be that way. I'd like to just now hand over to Pat to talk you through the assumptions that we've taken for planning for next year. We've certainly, to be fair to say, taken a conservative approach, and we'll talk through the risks and opportunities as well. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So you've probably seen versions of this from other CCOs. I think the key thing for us is being a public visiting organisation that is somewhat reliant on international tourism. The immediate issue is without international tourism, we're looking at a 30% drop in our visitation. And of course, they are the biggest spenders when it comes to retail, so that is translating into a loss in our trading revenues. We've taken a very conservative approach to our domestic and local tourism. We do think that this is probably quite harsh looking at it, but it's not unrealistic at this point in time. We will have a better feel, I think, at the end of June once we're into alert level 1 and we see what the impact of that is. But in the meantime, it's looking pretty low. The other issue we have, of course, is that we do get quite a few school groups through, and while we've got bookings for term 3 and 4, it's still going to be a slow start to that. So that's translated into our commercial situation there on the bottom part of that slide. We were looking at the downturn in retail, certainly a significant drop in our venue hire. Sponsorship is almost impossible to think that we could get sponsorship in the current climate, and but fortunately our contracts for service that we have with the Ministry of Education and CNZ are in place, and we've also received additional funding from CNZ. Next slide, please. So this is looking at our open for business. We have, with the exception of one of our institutions, which is the Nairn Street Cottage, we have reopened, and we know that announcements are going to be today about what level 1 looks like. We are assuming that it will be quite soon, and obviously we will be looking to return to normal opening hours at alert level 1, subject to our financial position. So if you just go to the next slide, we'll give you a snapshot of what it's been like since opening. You can see there that people are pleased to be back inside their institutions in Wellington. And what is really positive is the two bottom ones with Cable Car Museum And that's, you know, one of the great attractions of the city is a ride on the cable car and a visit to the Botanic Gardens, as well as popping into the Cable Car Museum, and also Space Place, which is benefit as well. So that's really positive. City Gallery, I think, has done really well and I think has the opportunity, obviously, to attract quite a new audience under the current situation. So if we could move now to the next slide, where we're looking at what we have done with our statement of intent. The middle column there is what it looked like in February. So we were projecting 737,000 visitors, and amongst that 67,500 children and young people, a very healthy net trading position, a healthy sponsorship position, and there you've got our grants and looking at what our year-end result was going to be, which was all pretty much positive. The impact of COVID-19 and the measures that have been put in place around the health and safety of the population has meant that we've rejigged our statement of intent. And as I mentioned before, we have taken a very conservative approach to visitation. So we're looking at 261,000 visitors and 21,000 of those being children and young people. The devastation, of course, is in our trading revenue. So we're going from 2.25 million down to just over 500,000. Sponsorship again significantly down. And our grants position is healthy because of our commitment from CNZ and the Ministry of Education. And also what you're seeing in there is the contribution that we got from the Tuia 250 lotteries for the navigators at Space Place. So our year-end financial projection is looking pretty grim at $1.2 million deficit. So moving on to the next slide, we've identified the opportunities that we have. I think that we back ourselves in terms of the contribution that we make to the city. It's important for us that we bring that joy to Wellingtonians and that we are open all year round. Those are important parts of what we offer. And we want to be in a position also where we continue to reach the communities that we serve. Looking over the page at the risks, and there are always risks. The possibility of return to alert level 3 or 4, slower than anticipated visitation levels, although we have taken a very conservative approach. Our revenues taking longer to reboot, particularly retail. The limitations on international travel are going to impact us significantly in terms of visitation, but also access to international content. If there is going to be, if there is a case in one of our facilities, then we will be closed for 14 days. We anticipate that we will be continuing to encourage staff who've got flu-like symptoms to be taking sick leave. And so managing their well-being and managing the well-being of our visitors is really important. And lastly, that public perception that we're not safe. So those are the risks that we've identified. Obviously, we're working to mitigate those significantly. I'm just going to touch on now our priority projects, which you'll all be familiar with. The first one is the Wellington Museum. This is the city's building. We have been developing it because it's in our interests to get it along. So we're at the point now where we've got almost final detail around design. So we will be in a position to put a business plan together for discussion with the council. It has made the shortlist of the shovel-ready projects, which is great for the city if that comes off. The navigators at Space Place is a fantastic project. This is looking at a bicultural navigation of both Māori and Pacific, plus also European. We expect to still be in a position to launch that in June next year, so that's something to look forward to. International art, unfortunately, we've had to defer the Helmer F. Clint project for 1 year, but we are still working on it. And the Capitally accommodation, which is something that I think you're all familiar with, we think that is a topic of discussion we believe would be helpful if we had a seat at the table to ensure that what we'd like to see happen in that area. And the final slide is just looking at the future and the kind of contribution that we want to continue to make. So we were very fortunate with going into lockdown because we've done quite a lot of work on our business systems, and they really have benefited us in terms of remote working. It enabled all of our staff to be working from home, and we wish to continue to work on that. We've also had to beef up our looking at different ways of engaging our audiences, and we will continue to do that. We will continue to emphasise our commitment to buy with, for and between in terms of how we engage our audiences. And an important thing for Wellington is that we do have these wonderful safe places for people to come to when they're in the city, and we contribute to the economic well-being of the city as well as the cultural and social well-being. And lastly, we want to be standing right alongside the Wellington City Council and all the other CCOs of ensuring that Wellington is still the undisputed arts capital of New Zealand. Happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Pat. Do I have councillors' questions? Councillor Young, and then Councillor Foon, and then Mayor Foster.
So, Pat, I will miss you. You've done a wonderful job there, and the thought that you're going to live in a brand new house up the coast, you know, is great for you, but it's been fantastic. So thank you for all that you've done. Looking forward to the housewarming too. So it just occurs to me, thinking about standing alongside council. Sorry, excuse me. A cough into my elbow. There's no one within 100 meters of me. One of the things that a former mayor, Mayor Wade Brown, had a bit of a thing about was the lack of signage on the Wellington Museum to show that you were supported by the council, if supported is the right word. I have looked on various times. I've never seen the signage. Has it ever eventuated, or do people still not know what wonderful patrons we are to you?
I think you'll find that it is there. It's certainly the.
Is it 8-point font?
Well, maybe it's a bit small. Maybe we could do something about that. Actually, Nicola, that would be my.
Well, I think you've probably got other priorities right now. Anyway, thank you. And I do love the Nan Street Cottage. I hope all my colleagues have been to see it. It is charming.
It is. It's a great asset to the city. Yeah.
Yeah. And the art exhibition at the City Gallery, wonderful one at the moment. Christine with the unpronounceable surname.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Foon, I see Councillor O'Neill as well.
I've got a few questions. Pat, thank you so much for all your mahi for Wellington City. You really have done us proud. So I hope you can walk away feeling like we've done you proud as well. But yeah, amazing job. So thank you. I'm just going to focus on the team again today. How many team do you have all up? And what is their general mood like? Like, are they concerned about the future for themselves, or are they concerned about the future for their work?
We have about 120 people working with us. Not all of those people are full-time. And I think that there is some concern about the future. It would be, you know, everyone is concerned about the future. And this, for a lot of our people, they're younger, particularly our front of house teams, they're younger. And I think it probably concerns them more than a number of other people in other age groups. We did do a survey through COVID, through lockdown, and the results were reasonably positive, actually. It wasn't all doom and gloom. But I think that people are passionate about what we do, and I think that carries them a long way in terms of what they get out of it when they come and work for us. It's been quite difficult initially, and also there was that fear factor about they're in the front line, and particularly the front of house teams in the front line and receiving visitors. But I think that we have put in place really, really good systems and processes to protect them and ensure their health and safety.
Sarah, would you like to add to that?
Kia ora tātou. Yes, I think one of the things that we've seen, particularly the last week when our institutions have reopened, is that our staff really gaining nourishment from that reconnection with the people of Wellington coming back through our doors. We've had over 1,500 Wellingtonians visit our various sites in the last few days, and that has been really fantastic. We've had some great feedback, and that has just buoyed the staff up. And it's obviously an evolving situation at the moment, and we're looking at how we can change possibly the ways we open and ways we reconnect with people. But it's been fantastic to reconnect and to really kind of assert our position and our value to the community of Wellington.
Yeah, nice, good. I'm going to find that Facebook post too. I missed that, so I'll go in there now and I'll let other councillors ask questions, but I'll come back, Jenny, with more if there is time. Thank you for your work.
Thanks, Councillor Foon. Mayor Foster.
Yeah, look, and can I join with saying thanks, Pat, for all your work over all of these years. I think you can be well satisfied with all that you've achieved. So thank you very much for that too. I just have one question, and that's just with respect to the gallery program, whether there's been any conversation with council staff around, it's probably mostly Gisela, but if there's been any conversation about any possible event type activities as we start reopening the city at any stage, potentially using the gallery. And if that possibility exists, I saw you pushed out the Flint exhibition, but so that doesn't impact. But if there are any opportunities to be able to do anything and it works, I mean, it's just a bit speculative, but if it did, is that opportunity there?
Thank you, Mayor Foster. There has been quite a lot of discussion about how we can celebrate unlocking Wellington. And this is not just between the council and us, it has involved other parts of the wider arts and community sector. And there is a real feeling that it would be quite good to do something along those lines. And also Wellington NZ has been involved in that. So at this point in time, I don't have any specific information about a specific event to help celebrate the unlocking of Wellington, but it's certainly something that there has been discussion about. We're in the process of setting up a meeting with council, with Gisela Carr, hopefully next week, where we can hopefully discuss that. But certainly we're always open to assisting with those kinds of activities.
Brilliant. No, thank you very much. And Jenny, I'm going to have to go in about 5 minutes or so. We're just over 5 minutes or so.
Thanks, Mayor Foster. Councillor O'Neill.
Kia ora, and as well, just to tautoko the other councillors, thank you, Pat, and thank you as well for the decisions that you've made over this time in COVID as well. I understand that you've been really, really strong employers of a lot of my mates in Wellington, but as well for taking up that wage subsidy. I know it doesn't go unnoticed, and it's really appreciated. My question was around opportunity for that really valuable understanding of local places where people stand in our city, and what sort of potential angles and marketing or programs that we might be doing to encourage more domestic uptake in tourism and learning of our city through a lot of your centres.
Okay, first of all, I should just mention too that we are an important part of the cultural ecosystem within Wellington. We are an employer of 120 people, and that actually is an important consideration in thinking about what we do. And we also employ people on a contract basis. A lot of the creative people that we work with at Capital E or at City Gallery or Wellington Museum, we contract them. So our financial position is quite critical in terms of our ability to support our arts and culture sector within the city. I'm always very proud of the fact that we're able to do that. So getting back to your question, we are always looking for different angles and new opportunities in terms of how we engage with our audiences. I think the fall by within between is a really critical mantra for us, because it means that we're not always telling people what they should hear from us, but we're actually asking them and working with them and creating situations where they can work together. I think the Wellington Museum development is a really good example of how we've beefed up our community engagement to ensure that we're getting a point of view from all sorts of different, particularly mana whenua, which is critical. I think Capital E has got some amazing examples that Sarah could probably mention to you about the kinds of work that's going on with schools, and particularly low decile schools, getting their creative juices going and then shaping it in a way that we are then taking it out to the population at large. And, you know, I think it was not quite this time last year, but we had this amazing performance at Te Marae at Te Papa, where we had all the whānau involved in a production that Capital E had put together. Do you want to just talk about that a bit, Sarah?
Kia ora. Yeah, so in terms of that involvement of the community, we've got some really great examples, as Pat just alluded to. The Capital E National Theatre for Children, we have Story Studio Live. That is a project which is going to be going out and working with school children across Wellington, particularly targeting lower decile schools, to understand their thoughts about the environment and community and how those things connect together, particularly in the wake of COVID-19. And so that work will contribute to a theatre programme which will just enhance and amplify children and young people's voices, and that will tour across Aotearoa with Creative New Zealand support. But what is really important about that is the bringing together of the Wellington creative community with those children and young people. And the team at Capital E have been working really hard to readjust their programme, so their focus in the next 6 to 9 months is all about how we enhance and support Wellington's creative infrastructure. And that's one of the ways that we have been serving our community throughout this process, and taking those voices and making sure that children and their perspectives are listened to, and the impact of this crisis on them doesn't fall by the wayside. And as Pat mentioned, things like the Navigator program at the museum is a huge example of the Wānanga, the Pacifica voice in there, the exploration expertise. These are all ways that we are standing with and listening to our community through in real life, but also at the moment, particularly online experiences. And it's been fantastic to see the team pivoting their programs into that online space. And we've had some really amazing engagement, not just from Wellingtonians, but also from across Aotearoa. So it's been fantastic to see that taking shape as well. And that's definitely learning that we're going to be taking into the future as well.
That's awesome. That's fantastic to hear. Thank you.
All right, there are a few more questions, but we're running out of time, so I'm going to keep us to schedule, because I know councillors, we have another committee meeting this afternoon, so I don't want us to run long today. We need our lunch break. So thank you very much, Pat and Jackie. I'm sure if there are any further questions, we can email them. Oh yes, Pat, please.
Could I just say thank you for your kind wishes. I've loved being part of Experience Wellington and part of the Wellington City Council family. And as Jackie said, it's very hard at the moment given our financial position. So, but thank you for your araha.
Thank you, Pat. We really do appreciate all the work you've done and the amazing work that the team have done over the past really difficult few months. As other councillors have said, on looking after your staff really well, and the amazing pivot that you've done online to find new ways to engage people in these new times has been really inspirational, really, and you've moved so quickly. It's been really impressive. So thank you for that, and we really look forward to working with you to figure out how we're going to make it through this next year. And working together to figure that out as we go forward.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Kia ora.
All right, and now I've got Wellington NZ on my speaking list. So we've got newly appointed Chief Executive John Allen with us. Hello, John, as well as Chair Tracy Bridges. Hello, Tracy. And as I understand, David Franks, you're here as well. Hello, David.
David Perks.
Perks, thank you. My apologies,
No,
David Perks. So handing it over to you, we look forward to hearing about what you've been up to.
Super, thanks so much, Jenny. Hey, well, first, tēnā koutou ngā rangatira, thanks so much for having us here. Before I start talking, I just want to let you know the three of us are actually in the same room together, just on 3 laptops. Our hope was that that would make the sound quality better for you all, so please do let me know if that's been successful or if you have any trouble hearing us as we go. It's been really lovely sitting through this morning and listening to our sister CEOs and hearing how they're talking about how they are working through COVID-19 and the effects of that. And I just want to say the partnerships that we have with them, but also with Council, have never been more important than ever at the moment with COVID-19. And that's such a crucial part of how we work. And we've been so grateful to be able to do that so much, particularly lately. In a moment, David is going to do most of the heavy lifting, talking about the work that we've been doing under COVID-19 and what's coming next. I just wanted to start out, first of all, to acknowledge you all, but then also to introduce our new Chief Executive. I know some of you will know John, but just to quickly introduce him, he comes to us with a lot of experience as a Chief Executive, having led New Zealand Post, Ministry for Foreign Affairs and Trade, and the New Zealand Racing Board in the past. With that Chief Executive experience comes great background in leading successful teams and in collaborating with a really wide range of stakeholders, which is in no small part why we've selected him. But also he comes with a background having been a member of the boards of Te Papa and the New Zealand Festival Trust. So he has a really broad connection with an understanding of what makes this city and this region so kind of wildly amazing to be a part of. He's a passionate Wellingtonian like all of us. I think that's enough from me. What I'm going to do now is hand over to John and step aside.
Kia ora tātou, and can I just say how great it is for the first time to be able to talk to this committee and to councillors about this sensational organisation that I'm now lucky enough to have a chance to lead. Those of you that know me, and I do know a few of you, will know that Tracy's been extraordinarily kind in her introductory remarks. And like everyone, there are plenty of flaws as well as the experience. But the good news is, and this is day 2, so the good news is that even in 2 days, I can tell you that there's a sensational team here. There's an enormously high spirit. There's a real focus and sense of urgency. And I think what you'll see is that even in the lockdown period, with all the challenges of that, what we've had, as Tracy's already said, is amazing collaboration. Collaboration across the council and councils and related agencies, but also amazing collaborations with communities, amazing collaborations with the business sector that do give you real hope that not only we're going to navigate this, but we're going to come out of it an awful lot stronger than we went into it. And this city and this region, I think, is going to really be pumping in a very short order. In terms of the things that the team have done, David can take you into the details, but put simply, you've seen some of it. It's been in the Dom Post, it's been online. The rebate for business deliveries, the Save Our Venues work for the independent music venues, the Love Local initiative, the webinars for 2,000 odd people have participated in that to get access to experience and to help them navigate through some of these challenges. It really has been fantastic, and I think it's been very positively received. There's a lot more coming. So obviously that's a start. Obviously that was in lockdown, but as we go to 2 and 1, as bubbles are created and all those things are happening, this team is going to go really into high gear. And so you're going to see a lot more advertising. And Wellington Unlocked, I think, has already been referred to in the promotions and opportunities that that represents. I think about the pop-up business school, which has been developed in collaboration with the city, and which is designed to ensure that people who've had great ideas in lockdown and want to do something with them, aren't quite sure how to do something with them, can get access to some business experience to help them sort of build on the ideas that they've had. That we've got the Thrive program with Creative HQ, which is going to support business. And most encouragingly for me, what we've also got is some events coming. And obviously they're going to draw largely on local talent. But there is some confidence now. Of course, if we go back in our ratings and all those sorts of things, that'll impact this. But it does look as though things like Wellington on a Plate, which of course is an institution in the city, Birvana, I think, and the Jazz Festival, which is particularly close to me, are all going to come. So look, 2 days or 1.5 days so far, but it really is, the vibe here is very, very strong. The collaboration is very strong, and I think the opportunity is very significant. And now David can tell you about all the real detail.
Kia ora, everybody. Good to see you all. And actually, John has told you pretty much everything, so I've taken my thunder already, John. Hey, I'm going to cover us off in a couple of different areas. I'll talk first of all about the marketing activity that we've been partnering with Council on a lot of this activity. So under the Love Local umbrella, lots of things. The meal delivery rebates scheme that was to support hospitality businesses when they were first able to reopen in level 3. This was about getting basically making deliveries free to encourage the public to participate and buy from those businesses. That's been going well. We also work with the Culinary Events Trust to create a website called At Yours, which has seen great traffic and is all about helping businesses, people in their locale find their most local businesses. And again, just trying to get that support out there and also get people back out and used to spending money and engaging with other people. We're also about to, we ran a couple of design sprints with Creative HQ, one focused on the retail sector and one on the hospitality sector. With the retail sector, we're creating a promotion which will launch in about a fortnight's time called Wellington Unlocked. And effectively, this is a shop in store campaign, get people back into the city, using our retailers and giving shoppers the opportunity to win fantastic Wellington region and Wellington city experiences that again will give some opportunity to promote tourism within the region. So that's exciting. And we're also working on another hospitality promotion, which is called Greatest Hits. And effectively, this is about finding the very most popular, those sacrosanct dishes that certain restaurants do, promoting those out there and getting locals to get back into restaurants. And of course, that's both at lunchtime and during the day. We need people back in the city. We also partnered heavily with Council on the We Welcome You Back campaign, where you've seen a lot of retailers and hospitality businesses wearing the badge saying we're a safe place for you to visit. We're welcoming locals back. Of course, in the heart of lockdown, it was pretty challenging to do anything, but we still got Wellingtonians really motivated. If you followed the brick challenge, the Lego challenge, you'd have seen some fantastic, amazing creations. And I thought one of the things that was interesting was most of the creations were actually of things that either Council runs or that a CCO runs. And of course, the winner was an actual scaled model of the cable car, which was just amazing. If you've not seen it, go and look on Facebook. Brilliant stuff. We've also found that during the lockdown period, lots of people were engaging with our content locally. And so trying to keep that spirit up of locals, getting locals to get out and about, getting people out on the trails around the city. And we're seeing a lot of engagement with those people online right now. And we're looking to retain that and drive business out of it with a regional staycation campaign that we're launching this week. And this is about getting people within the Wellington region to travel about the region. And so if you're in the city, perhaps go to the Wairarapa, but if you're in the Wairarapa, come into the city. But we've actually pushed it out as the alert levels have reduced. And this is going to be for everybody in the drive range from Taranaki across to Hawke's Bay. And this will be live for the next couple of weeks. And it's all about getting people to spend and get people out there used to traveling around. We then will move into a more dedicated tourism campaign where we will effectively launch Wellington back to all New Zealanders. And one of the great things is, you'll be aware perhaps that Tourism New Zealand are doing domestic tourism. We've been provided with their research, and what we know is that Wellington almost always comes up in the top 3 places to visit in New Zealand. So we really want to make sure we make the very most of that. We think in the winter there's every opportunity to do that, and it is during this winter period that businesses feel they'll be most challenged, having lost their revenues in late summer and over the Easter holidays. And of course, as John's mentioned, trying to jigsaw that into events later in the year, giving people those reasons to travel. And so Warwick Dent and I are both working hard on events, but also on working with central government to try and get additional support for what we're trying to do to reactivate tourism in the city and in the region. And there will be plenty of media work behind that. Moving on to the business stuff, John's talked about a lot of it, but I thought I'd just talk about what the business response team have been doing and the volume of businesses we've helped in Wellington City. So at the end of last week, there was 521 Wellington City businesses had received a voucher for support. Most of the people asking for support were asking for financial planning, accountancy, cash flow support. Some were looking for marketing support, and then a significant group as well looking for help with human resources. The value of those vouchers that have gone out to Wellington City businesses is almost $620,000 in the last 4 weeks. And quite interestingly, we've found it's been a rich source of engaging with Maori businesses and creating some brand new relationships there, both in the city and across the region. And we're really excited about that, the opportunity that gives us for the future. I'll just talk briefly about, you're probably aware we do work in the international education sector, and certainly when this first happened, we all went, oh, what's going to happen next? Well, although we don't know exactly what's going to happen next, we do know that during the lockdown between Victoria and Wellington, there's been about 1,200 international students still in Wellington. And we know that they've been engaging quite highly with us through a program we run called Work Ready, which is about helping those international students prepare for applying for and working in Wellington and in New Zealand. And we've had fantastic engagement in those sessions, and we've realized that it's been good in terms of teaching them the purpose of it, but also creating a community that became pastoral in effect as well. And we've just started a second series of that program to keep that group engaged, which is exciting. In the screen space, obviously there's quite a bit in the media about the screen space. Probably our critical action in this space was to effectively create the safe standards for operating in the screen sector in New Zealand, and getting those established very quickly with the support of the councils, so that the screen business was able to get going, and we're now processing screen permits like normal, which is great. So I might leave it at that, but I'm sure we're all happy to take questions.
Thanks, David. I'm going to take the chair's prerogative and ask the first question, and then I've got Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Young on my list after that, and Councillor Foon. First, I just want to say thank you. My overall impression of Wellington NZ during this crisis has been of an incredibly high-performing organisation that has pivoted so quickly in such difficult circumstances. And I just wanted to take the chance to say publicly, congratulations to you and the team. It's really been impressive. Thank you so much.
Thank you for saying so.
You know, it's and really, I think, you know, looking forward, we really acknowledge that Wellington NZ is kind of the linchpin in our economic response in Wellington about how we're going to bounce back to this. And John Allen, you talked so much about the collaboration. And you know, Wellington NZ as an organisation really sits at the heart of lots of collaborations between all the regional councils, between the businesses, and all of these things. So we know that you're going to be playing a really important role going forward. And my question is really just how can we help you and make sure that we're working with you effectively and that we're supporting you at whether it's at a staff level or at this committee at a governance level. You know, what can we be doing going forward, because this is going to be a really important 6 months and you have a really crucial role to play.
I might answer first, the others may chip in. I think, you know, one of the things that I've always felt we enjoy is an amazing relationship with the officers at the City Council. So the first thing is, let's make sure that carries on. The second one, obviously, the Council have dedicated resources to a recovery fund. Let's make sure we are really working together to make sure we work that money really hard. And if there's ways that we can use that money to bring other money to the table, potentially from central government, we should make absolutely certain we're making every one of those opportunities. And I think one of the interesting things about this period and that pivoting has been that it's meant that the number of businesses and the breadth of businesses we've touched has increased. It's been more than normal because more businesses have been crying out for help. And what I'm excited about is how do we keep engaged with that broader church of businesses as we go forward without losing our commitment to our clear purposes. And so having council officers help us with that and working with the team that work with Phil Becker and the team that work with businesses is going to be really critical in that space.
Thanks, David. And I really wanted to say as well, welcome to John, and so exciting to hear from you, and your energy and enthusiasm is quite infectious. So it's great to have you here, and really looking forward to getting to work with you and you know, see how we can work together for getting Wellington pumping again.
Thanks very much. It's
going to be really, you know, it's a difficult time, but there's also lots of opportunities, and if we can take it with an attitude of excitement, I think there are real possibilities. So I'm going to go on to my next question, which is Councillor O'Neill.
Kia ora, thank you, and welcome, John, and thank you, David and Tracy as well. My question is around kind of the premise of young creatives working in Wellington at the moment. A lot of big festivals have been put on hold, things like Comedy Fest or Fringe Festival over COVID response. And I've been talking with a couple of different producers. So I've got a question from me, and then I've got a question from them. The first question from me is, you've listed in your report Creative HQ has had to put a number of programs on hold. I was wondering if you could go into a few of the programs that might have been put on hold around things like Tourism Accelerator or other spots there, and when those might be getting off the ground again. And then I'll ask their question in just a moment.
Yeah, sure. So I guess the good news is that those programs are already getting off the ground again. The Arts Accelerator, which should have kind of been really kicking off full time in the middle of May, we're imagining we'll be kicking off full time probably mid-July. So that's moving quickly, delayed purely by the ability to get people together. The Tourism Accelerator, again, that should have been starting about a week ago. And we've reconfigured it slightly. We're going to do different projects as we get the right projects to do. The first one that we and our tourism industry partners are really keen to pursue is some work around Wellington as a sustainable destination. We know that sustainability and such is a real challenge for the tourism industry. So it's kind of, how do you create a product that is a carbon neutral weekend away? And obviously working with our CCO colleagues, there's every opportunity to build that. And what we're really excited about is the commercial businesses that we work with are also keen to pursue that project.
Awesome. And the second question is from a producer that manages quite a few artists in Wellington at the moment. And she's really keen to understand, from your perspective, what the community needs from artists right now, and where some of that sustainable innovation can come from, and what people can do. I think, John, you spoke about the challenge and the opportunity in your opening statement. So what are some of the cool things going forward?
So I think, as we've indicated, one of our challenges is in the event space. And part of that challenge is that typically the big events demand people coming in from overseas. So I think we are really interested in the opportunity of working with locally generated content and events to put those on the pedestal through this year, so that we can drive that opportunity for Wellingtonians in that creative space. And we see that, you know, the announcements by New Zealand On Air about funding of creative programs is something we need to be jigsawing into carefully, and we are doing through the Screen Wellington office. And of course, you know, whilst there's a lot of debate around these people coming in for filming of Avatar, you know, that at times that will be worth up to 2,000 jobs in Wellington, and many of them in the creative space. So, you know, it's all a balancing act, but we know that those jobs will put money into both individuals, but also business pockets, as people will earn their wages over the next 5-6 years potentially.
Lovely. And Councillor Young.
Okay, so thank you. So welcome, John. It's good to have you in the wider family. Just a couple of points. First of all, about the papers, it was very hard to read the pie charts. So just so you know, for future reference, and also please, the abbreviations. I've got no idea what BEW means. I don't think it's a car, or AMIE. So could you just bear in mind that some of us live in a different world, and I hate abbreviations anyway. So that's the niggle out of the way. So the regional business partner program, so I've had feedback from people in the sector who said it was absolutely fantastic and it was a real game changer for them. So I'd just like to say thank you, and that's really well done. Just a couple of things I want to ask you about. One is, what has happened to the City of Film? Is that, where are we with this, with the idea of being is it a UNESCO City of Film?
Yeah, sure. So the designation was made at the end of 2019, and Council resourced us in this 6 months period to create the 4-year strategy and a 1-year business plan, effectively, that kicks off from 1 July. And we've employed somebody who's doing that right now. We're probably, because of the need to get the various parties engaging together, and we're probably about 4 weeks behind schedule. So we're expecting to have that strategy in place by the last week of July.
Great, that's very exciting, thank you. So then just the other thing, are you involved in this process for the Canberra-Wellington bubble idea?
No, we're not involved.
Well, I'll save that one for another occasion.
Okay.
I'll move on, thinking of time constraints. So just thinking about the Love Local campaign, and this is really a plea as someone who lives in the middle of the city, which is don't forget that we need to advertise in local things. I'm thinking of things like Capital Magazine, you know, because I'm very concerned about all those small products that are so very Wellington. And I just think people sort of think advertising is the radio and the Don Post, which of course is now privately owned, which is great. But just a little plea. And then the other thing was, I am concerned about the Carter Fountain, the dancing, which I think was done as a joint venture between City Council and Wellington NZ, the ballet dancers in the fountain, because so I lead the arts portfolio, didn't know about it, the mayor didn't know about it, there was no publicity in the paper about it. So, you know, whilst I think it possibly is a debatable idea because people are so twitchy about spending money, but I just think, don't forget to take us all on board. And that's a message I have relayed at the council level too. So I'm not picking on you. It's just a plea to keep us up to speed on that sort of thing. But, you know, I think it has been amazing what you've done during this benighted time that we've been through, still going through. And so I'd just like to thank you for some really inspired ideas and actually implementing them. So thank you. And that's it from me.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Young. I've got Councillor Foon and then Councillor Calvert.
Kia ora tātou, kia ora John. Welcome to our little circle here. It's fantastic to have you on board. Yes, I think you're just going to have to take it, Wellington NZ. You've done an incredible job. That's really given us a whole array of hope during what we've just been through. And so without putting you on a pedestal, I just really want you to make sure that goes out to all of your team, that I know that they've worked so hard and they need to know how appreciated. Also just want to reflect, thank you for working with the other CCOs and really holding all of our Wellington story together. And I've loved seeing things like the welcome signs out on all of the businesses. It just makes such a big difference. And please congratulate all of those that worked on the Save Our Venues. It was an excellent performance. I couldn't believe that was streaming into my home. In fact, dinner was late as my husband got locked into watching Esther, and I don't blame him. But, you know, so yeah, just you've been exceptional. I guess what I'm really seeing now, and John, thank you for your words of hope, because I think Wellington really needs to hear that right now. And so I'm just going to keep asking you to be bold with the vision that you're putting out there for what Wellington can be and see, and the good things we've got going on. Like anyone, we're good at getting down in the dumps sometimes, but really having that voice of hope and vision forward is critical. Just on the businesses, I just want to acknowledge all the businesses that you've connected with. And David, thank you for acknowledging that, you know, how to stay in touch with them and really pull them in together. But I guess the question I have for you today is, from your sense, what is the general mood of the businesses out there, regardless of sales and where they're at, or, you know, but how are they feeling in terms of hopefulness going forward?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think for a lot of businesses, the progress through this is happening a lot more quickly than they were anticipating. So it is giving people an ongoing silver lining. I think there is also, though, concern, certainly at the street level businesses, that this might be a bit of a honeymoon period. People are getting back out, doing a bit of shopping, going to a restaurant. Will they still be feeling that same confidence in 3 or 4 weeks' time, or will we be concerned about a whole array of other things? Certainly, you know, talking to businesses in the tourism sector that we know were probably some of the most significantly impacted. Queen's birthday weekend was probably better than it's ever been before, so that's really good. I think if there's one group of businesses I'm probably particularly concerned about right now, it is those businesses probably at the north end of the city that rely on office workers, and typically government office workers, and they are appropriately scared for their lives. And I think if there were businesses that are going to fall over in the next short while, those are the ones that will. And they're typically either small independent retailers, Costco businesses, or of course the bigger retailers, which are more likely to be owned offshore or somewhere. But those small independents, those small cafes, small retailers, I do feel concerned for those businesses. And I think, you know, whilst obviously we want everybody to operate safely, and we've all appreciated both the cons and the pros of working from home, the city needs that vibrancy for those businesses, but in the longer run, for much else as well, which is what's made Wellington the enviable best city in New Zealand that it is.
Well, I'm back in for exactly that reason, and I have my reusable lunchbox ready to go down and support our local cafes.
Excellent.
So yeah, let's keep that message going out there. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Councillor Foon. Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. And it was something that I was going to touch on about how do we sort of help encourage people to come back into the city, because it is really important, and it's good that you've acknowledged it as well. So just first up, look, there's been a lot of chitter chatter again around the Convention Exhibition Centre. So can I just ask you on record whether Wellington NZ is still fully backing this venue as what it is?
Certainly can. Absolutely, we are. Councillor Young, BEW is Business Events Wellington, and I haven't referred to what they were doing during this period, but effectively they have been filling the funnel of opportunity by talking to conventions across New Zealand, across Australasia, and indeed globally about the opportunity to bring events to Wellington in the future, dependent upon that the convention centre. And I think, you know, there's a little bit of talk out there, Councillor Calvert, you know, where people talk about it, oh, it's all about business. Well, actually, it's not about business. Most of the conventions that come into New Zealand from overseas, but also domestically, are they're driven by the education establishment. So this is an opportunity for senior academics at Victoria, at Massey, to get their stories on the stage here where they do their work. They're about the associations of that look after culture, that look after well-being, look after health, look after medicine, look after science. And if we want to be a centre of those important things in the future of mankind, we need to be a place where people can talk about those things from a stage. So for us, we think the convention centre, yeah, it's good, it brings visitors, but it's much bigger than that, the opportunity it provides for the city. And of course, part of the convention centre is the exhibition centre. And the exhibition centre on the ground floor is about bringing exhibitions to Wellington that can't fit into Te Papa, and will bring things that indeed therefore can't come to New Zealand at the moment. They'll be there for Wellingtonians to enjoy, but at the same time, they will give us another great leg to our stool of domestic tourism to bring people from other parts of New Zealand to enjoy everything we know they enjoy about Wellington all year round, because it's indoors.
Thank you. I know, I acknowledge it was a bit of a patsy question, to be honest. I thought I'll take the opportunity.
Well done.
I did learn some new perspectives on it, so it was great. Thank you.
And I'm happy to talk to any of you about it much longer, because there is such good stories behind it.
Okay, local lunch, you're on.
And so, having said that, the TSB Arena, which is essentially our convention centre at the moment, that will be fully utilised once the convention centre opens.
Yeah, well, one of the challenges we have at the moment, of course, that we used to have the convention centre and the whole of the town. We used to have the TSB Arena and the whole of the town hall. The town hall is being repurposed. The arena is a battle between conventions and entertainment, and actually we need both, because the music, the entertainment, the world of wearable arts that we can bring into the city are one really important part of our DNA. But the other part of conventions is really important too, as I've just described.
Thank you. And look, I just want to ask about I know the We program, and the signs up, and we've got a lot of, shop local, love local, buy local, buy Kiwi made. And I'm just wondering about, there's a lot, whether there's a lot of white noise out there about the whole thing, whether we are in danger of cluttering the message, because I go into shops and I do see a lot of different signs up on the windows. And whether Wellington NZ is going to sort of have a look at at that, about the out there in those shops, and what it does, whether does it need to carry on, so to speak.
I think at the moment the answer is yes. New Zealanders, whilst we're all probably keen and pleased to be out and about, there's a lot of New Zealanders who still aren't, and New Zealanders who need reassuring. So that welcoming message, however it's portrayed by an individual business, is important. And obviously, at a time where people have less money in the pocket, and the more of that money they can spend on product that is Wellington sourced, the better it is for our local economy. I think there's also an important part of it where it's giving hope and confidence to those individual businesses to be there, be open, and engage with their customers, and that's equally important.
Okay, thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Calvert. I'm going to just ask a couple of quick questions before we wrap up. I think, I really appreciate Councillor Calvert bringing up the Convention and Exhibition Centre, because I think it's somewhere where we're just not telling the story very well to the public at the moment. And it would be great, I think, if Wellington NZ and council officers could work together to tell that story better going forward. I think that would be fantastic. The question that I have is really around the venues review, which is just sort of where is that at, and when is it going to come to see us? Because I'm very conscious of that, especially going into our long-term plan, that we have a clear idea about where we're at with our venues across the city.
Yeah, so the project's been completed, and I think we've also taken a careful look at it to make sure of its relevancy as things have changed. And I think that look remains, because things, as I've said, just seem to be changing so quickly for us, don't they? I think Warwick and Lance had taken it to the leadership team at council last week or the week before, and I think Barbara's now organising it for it to come to the councillors as part of the long-term plan submission workshops.
Great, thank you so much for that. And just finally, I guess I wanted to ask what has been Councillor Foon's question during the day, which is, how are the team at Wellington NZ doing? Because you all cop a lot of flack. Sometimes it seems like you can't do anything right, according to the public. And I just sort of wanted to check in on how is everyone's well-being over there.
Yeah, it was certainly, from my perspective, I think it's almost been in a ironic way. It's been an exciting time for a significant part of our team, and certainly in the business response area, the business support area, and the marketing area, we're always busy, don't get me wrong, but we've probably been busier than ever, and that's been exciting. Of course, there is a part of our business operating venues which is more challenged, and which we continue to take very, very great care of, both understanding what the future looks like and understanding what that will mean for the people who work in that part of our business. Again, we are so pleased to see that New Zealand's moving so quickly through this, and even the notes that Warwick had given me for this at the end of last week are now out of date and going to level. If we do go to level 1 next week, being able to have free business meetings and be a place to host those will be really important for us, but also individually for our team who are there delivering that work. And of course, the businesses who work with us in that business, like the caterers, the audio-visual companies, all those kind of people.
Thanks for that, David, and thank you to Tracy and John, to all of you for being here today. And I allowed some extra time for questions because I think we really are all conscious of the really important role that Wellington NZ is playing in our recovery at the moment. So thank you for all of that, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much for your time.
Very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, so next on my speaking list is the Wellington Zoo, and I'd just like to welcome Karen and Craig, and thank you for your patience. I did let that item run over because I felt it was quite important. So thank you for your patience while you've been waiting for your time to come up. I really appreciate that. And over to you.
Morena, Jenny. Kia ora koutou rangatira. O te upoko o te eka Maui, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I was just reflecting on listening to the previous presentation about getting Wellingtonians out and feeling safe and enjoying the facilities and the great things they can do around Wellington. We were lucky enough to host Her Excellency the Governor General and Sir David to the zoo last week, and just her interacting with our visitors, and it was a fairly full day at the zoo, and just talking with our team, and obviously seeing how our team were, again reflecting a little bit and repeating what Councillor Foon has been asking in terms of our team. It was great to have her there, great to be able to host that visit. Karen and I will present today on 3 areas for discussion: the Q3 pre-COVID-19, COVID-19 March to June 2020, and our response to this pandemic, and COVID-19 2021, our financial year, how we are looking to rebuild and to regenerate over the next 12 to 18 months. If we look at Q3, pre-COVID seems so long ago, but it is. There's been a lot since then. Look, pre-COVID, we were on track to meet all our non-financial targets. Our commercial products were all on or exceeding budget, even though our visitation was down. And we were focusing on that visitation. We were aware of that. We had a number of tactics in play to meet our financial targets. Initiatives such as animal close encounters with the sun bear and with the tarantulas, new tour for our international tourists, plus of course our opening weekend in May, and driving more value out of the venues, our business, which is really doing so well pre-COVID. So we were expecting to meet our balanced budget for 1990-20, even if we didn't quite make that visitation target.
Over to me.
Karen.
Morena, everybody. Yes, it does seem like a long time ago that we talked about Q3, but obviously when we went into lockdown, the effect was immediate for us. No visitors, no commercial products, and that was really frustrating, obviously, and it's been the same for everybody that I've been listening to this morning, because we were actually seeing growth in those areas.
Sorry to interrupt you, Karen, but you're a bit quiet. People might be having trouble hearing you, so just lean in a bit more, and that would be great.
I will, and I'm just going to check my volume. There you go. Okay, how's that? It always does this. But when we went into lockdown, obviously the biggest concern for us, well, there were two concerns: animal welfare and our people's welfare, and making sure that everyone was feeling okay about what we were doing and how we were reacting to each of the alert levels. Can you hear me now, Jenny?
No, we're still having trouble hearing you.
Okay.
I think it's mostly at making sure that you're leaning and looking right at your computer. The microphone doesn't seem to have much range.
Okay. I might.
Okay.
I might put onto that. Is that better?
It's a bit better.
Is that better?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, so we were making sure our animals were really well looked after, and also our people. I mean, we are quite a fixed cost business because most of our expenses are in people. And so it was really, we were very grateful to get the wage subsidy, because that did help for our permanent staff and for our casual staff. And also we were very grateful that our council grant was still continuing through that period as well. So while we had all our revenue stopping, we still had some other ways we could actually manage our budget. So at the moment, we're still in respond mode to COVID. As Craig said, we're thinking about respond, rebuild, regenerate in terms of our planning going forward. So we're still very much in terms of respond and making sure that everything is actually ticking along okay for our people and our animals. But I must say, in that response period, I do want to give credit to our marketing team who did a brilliant job with social media. And also our animal keepers. I mean, really, they kept all of us sane because we were working from home, so we couldn't see the animals. So on our work chat platform, the keepers were actually giving us fantastic videos of the animals and all the training and conditioning they were doing and the enrichment they were doing. So they were great. They did TikTok videos, they did all sorts of things. So just to keep us all, you know, happy about what was going on. So I really appreciated that. But then, of course, once we got into alert level 2, we were really happy to be part of the council's pandemic plan and be free for our community. And that's been very interesting. So we are working with Loves Data to have a look at what that visitation pattern looks like, because we are seeing a different demographic. Obviously, our members are coming back. They're very excited to be back, but we are seeing quite a different demographic coming through our zoo. So that's an interesting question for me around price barriers and things like that for our community into the zoo. So of course we broke the internet for ResD as soon as our booking platform went up and everyone tried to book in. It just collapsed all around the world. So they had to spend 24 hours trying to get it ready again, because what we did was we limited numbers for safety and physical distancing, because people gather at the animal habitats. So we limited it to 1,000 a day, two sessions, morning, afternoon. That just went gangbusters as soon as the bookings came online. So if we go to alert level 1, we're actually considering increasing that to make it 2,000 people a day, because everyone's being so good. I mean, they're just really, you know, thinking about physical distancing, using the hand sanitizers, using Ripple and the government app to get into the zoo. And so it's been really good watching how communities actually responded to that. I do have to say our retail sales are doing really well. So as people are coming in for free, I think they're seeing retail as a way of donating or giving back to the zoo. So I think I've just got to check this. We reached half of our May target in 9 days for retail. So I'm just like, thank you to our community for being so wonderful and thinking, well, we could buy something in the zoo, then we give the money back. So I'm really happy about that. So that's free entry. So thank you very much to all of you for suggesting that as part of the pandemic plan. I think it's been a brilliant thing for our community, for us in Zealandia, to be both free. I think it's been really excellent. And then going into the next financial year, Craig's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. So our plans for 2021 to introduce those new animal-related experiences for locals and for domestic tourists, to diversify our funding strategy from trusts and foundations to individuals and corporate giving, and changing the catering model to have an exclusive caterer who can drive business and invest in the business, and also ensuring, as part of all of that, ensuring our existing relationships stay solid and that our processes support our local and domestic focus. We've gone through some of the assumptions. I mean, if we look at Q1 for 2021, our revenues assumed to be around 350,000 compared to last year when it was actually around 830, 840,000. So those assumptions, again, they're based on what levels we'll be at, have a real impact on our ability to perform financially. Our visitor mix is traditionally local 60% and domestic 20%, with another roughly 20% being international. So we expect things to keep improving in the first 6 months through hopefully increased domestic tourism, but increased, just see that support that Karen's talked about continuing through as much as we can. but real impacts will be felt over the coming year. And look, we've been in contact with council officers throughout the crisis, and again, I'll repeat Karen's comments that we really appreciate the support that the zoo has received. We are committed and we really want to continue our success as a progressive and world recognised zoo, recognised for conservation, sustainability, animal welfare, and an excellent visitor experience. And that's been reflected on how strongly our community has responded to our need to appreciate the importance of the zoo to Wellington. We're looking forward to regenerating in the next 18 months, and the snow leopard project will certainly help that. Big cats are a visitor favourite, and already people are asking, hey, how's that coming along? When are they arriving? We're pretty excited about it too. But we certainly appreciate that the business case for this project was approved by the ART and council and the community as part of the long-term plan. In any event, the area where we're looking to develop it will need to be addressed from an earthquake and a health and safety risk perspective anyway. If we're only to remediate that, that's certainly, we still have to spend at least $1 million there to do that. And we just think it's such a really smart idea to reuse and repurpose that part of the zoo. And that remediation is about what it took to refurbish the chimp habitat. That worked really well. We've progressed the project. We have architecture workshop and Story Inc. Been contracted to do the design. And this project's already supporting jobs and will do even more so as it develops. The global manager for snow leopards is very keen for us to have snow leopards as spaces are needed to support the breeding program. Melbourne Zoo recently has had some cubs in January, so they might be our snow leopards as they come in. Discussions are still happening, and we need to work out what animals are best for us. Look, to date on this project, we've spent or contracted just on $1 million, or just over $1 million. But another thing I think is really important is that the Zoo Trust will look to raise $925,000, or 25% of the project, which will be vested to the council. There's been a bit of chatter about snow leopards, but that's just, again, a flavour of how we're looking forward, and perhaps answer some of the questions you may have. Happy to take questions, and but I really must stress deep appreciation from the zoo to the support the council's received over this really difficult time. The picture in the back is a lion in winter. Is this the winter of our discontent? No, it's not, but it is a fact that as an organisation, it doesn't matter what the weather or the pandemic is, we have a responsibility that we take to heart to look after our animals and provide a wonderful connection between the community of Wellington and nature through the animals we're lucky enough to host. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Karen and Craig. And thank you for all the work that you and the team have been doing at the zoo. It's been really fantastic. And I have a friend who tried to book in to take her kids to the zoo and wasn't able to because it was full. So, which she was secretly a little bit delighted about because it was rainy apparently that day. But you know, so the fact that it's been so busy and so well received by the community is great. And it'll be great to learn what we can learn from that experience going forward. I think now, councillors, did I have some questions? I thought I had yes, I thought Councillor Young, yep, and then Councillor Foon.
So this is a really boring question, and Karen, we're pleased to know it's not about snow leopards. I'm just thinking about the fact that your retail has been so stunningly successful, and the supply chain. Can you restock?
We were so lucky, Nicola, because we had bought a whole lot of stock ready for the holidays. So we had heaps ready for the holidays, and of course the holidays didn't happen. So in terms of stock, we do get a lot from New Zealand businesses as well. A lot of our sustainability products come from New Zealand. So that's really good. And it's around the country that we get the product. But a lot of the other product comes from Australia. So that's still coming in.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you don't have the usual kind of supply lines further east? West in our case, actually, it's further west for us.
We try to have, our shop is very sustainable, so we are very careful where we source our product in terms of sustainability value chain. Yeah.
Thank you. I haven't forgotten about the snow leopards. I'm just biding my time.
Thank you. Councillor Foon.
Kia ora, Craig and Karen, and once again, thank you for all of your mahi. And yes, I have nieces and nephews that also haven't been able to get in, so we're all a little bit disappointed, but that's okay. Look, I just do want to acknowledge the work that you've been doing in the Q3 that we weren't able to focus on today, but particularly around the Australian bushfires. I think it's a really big reflection of what we've been through, even over this year. And when we go back to remembering that, like, you know, there was a deep sadness around that time. So yeah, anyway, had a moment's self-reflection, but just want to thank you for what you did around for that as well. And also your work on energy savings, like all of that. Please, can you share that with all the other CCOs? That would be lovely, how you're doing all of that. But my question,
and us too, and council too.
Yeah, us too. But my question today is actually about I want to acknowledge that you've reflected also that there is a new demographic coming through the zoo. Can I ask that we are shared that information when you make sense of what that is? I think that would be really of great interest.
Definitely, Laurie, because we know when we have our accessibility initiatives throughout the year, they're hugely well attended.
Yeah.
I mean, Neighbours Night is just growing and growing every year. Open weekend last year, we had nearly 16,000 people in 2 days. It says something to me about barriers, and obviously we have to run a commercial model in terms of being able to pay for the animals to be fed and cared for, and having really good quality staff. But it does say something to me about the community and why those accessibility initiatives are so important. And I'm really interested to see how .love's data looks at the data that we're getting and where people are coming from. We know we can sort of get a split already, that we're getting a lot more people from Porirua and outside of Wellington. And we're getting about 55% still within Wellington City, but it's growing. Like that group that's coming in from outside is coming in for the free days. So what does that say about our business model? Just a very interesting question for me, in terms of us being a community asset that should be available to all the community. So what does that look like going forward?
Good. I'm just pleased to know that many other people have been able to enjoy Wellington Zoo over this time anyway.
Well,
thanks.
I did notice that Malcolm commented before about the lag and whether or not people won't come in the first 3 months. So you can be one of the people that come in the first 3 months.
Oh, wait, okay.
Yes, we can schedule that in so that we're filling in. We'll let the honeymoon period run, and then we'll fill in the gap at that point. Totally a personal. Oh, Councillor Sparrow, all I have is a trivial question, so let's have your question first.
Well, I was going to. This could be a tricky one in regard to the snow leopard, so I won't make it a tricky one. But yeah, that could go on forever. When are the snow leopards scheduled to be there, Karen? Please.
So the planning at the moment is that we're still in design phase, and we've got a meeting tomorrow with Architecture Workshop actually to have a look at some of the concepts they've come up with. So the plan is that it will open in early 2022. So that's what's so important in terms of our regeneration phase for the organisation. As Craig alluded to, big cats are always very popular. These are climate change litmus test species, so it helps with our conservation messages. So 2022 is when the habitat's ready to be open. However, the animals may come earlier than that so that we can get them acclimatised and be ready to go into the habitat once it's built. So that will all depend on working with the global species manager. So these animals are managed globally across all the progressive zoos in the world. And as Craig was saying, they're really looking for spaces because they have a very successful breeding program in Europe and in America. We'd be the only zoo in New Zealand that would hold snow leopards. Melbourne holds them in Australia, but that would be really important for us to be part of that global species planning in terms of the animals. So that there's a lot of work to be done with that, but discussions are already happening, so that's not a problem.
Well, thank you for that. And I just like to, my daughter took her 2-year-old to the zoo. I'm pretty sure she did that just in the last 2 or 3 weeks and thoroughly enjoyed it, as most people do. And most of us do see the value in animals. We do like them very much, beyond just eating them or wearing them, as one of the comments on this page admits to. Yeah, wait.
With the exception of Councillor Young.
Thank Councillor
I
Sparrow.
don't believe it.
Councillor O'Neill.
Oh, just very briefly wanted to say a huge thank you. Given the Wellington Zoo has always been a fantastic CCO that's managed to really capture community and bring people in, and I've certainly found that too. I've had friends going for the first time, and it's really a big source of warmness over the bubble and lockdown. My question was around your fantastic conservation strategy, and given a lot of this work ties in with community events and education programs of different grants funding, what have, if any, interruptions to delivering that program, and later down the track, how's conservation on track for the rest of the year?
There's no stopping of that at all. Very important. It's our mission critical part of what we do, right? So we can respond to the operational critical things that we're facing at the moment, but mission critical and staying with our strategy is really important. So we've just completed writing the conservation strategy, which will be coming to council soon, probably in the next report. And obviously what we're seeing from our conservation partners is that they are desperate for support, because a lot of NGOs around the world are really struggling with COVID. And, you know, I mean, they are desperate to make sure that their supporters, like we are, to have our supporters support us, but they are really running a lot closer to the bone than we do. So it's really important that we support them. So because we can't travel, so we won't be sending our staff anywhere anytime soon in terms of our global partners. We've still got people going to work with Kia Conservation Trust because they can get to the South Island. That we will probably be able to support them in other ways rather than just sending people to give them staff support. So we may be able to give them more funding support. So we're looking at all that over the next couple of months. But they're very grateful for the support. You know, they're doing some amazing work out there in the world, and we want to continue to support them.
Fantastic. I might send you an email to get a bit more information off you, but that sounds fantastic.
Okay.
What we can do. And then my only other question, it might be a bit lighthearted as well, but how are our moko moko doing, the little Wellington green lizards? I think I saw some more babies out there.
Yes, that was so exciting that we had a baby. I mean, really, she was gravid and we thought, will she, won't she? It was a bit like the spiders, you know, every time the tarantulas build this egg nest, she ends up wrecking it and there's no baby spiders. And then we had 30 baby spiders. So when the keepers came in and found this Wellington green gecko, oh my goodness, the level of excitement went right around the place. You know, photos shared on work chat, very exciting. So it's that program that we're working with DOC and Namanu and Zealandia to actually bring back Wellington green geckos to our city is so exciting. We've done a lot of great work with the birds, so now it's time to devote some time to the little geckos.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of those.
They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
That's great, thank you. And my trivial question is, when are the close encounters with the tarantulas starting?
Well, that's one of the things we're looking at doing as soon as we can get encounters up again. And that will be as soon as possible.
Excellent. Yeah. I have a 7-year-old who's very we play a video game and my character got bitten by a tarantula, and this was very traumatic for my 7-year-old, and he's now very upset. He's had trouble falling asleep. So I think I'm going to have to put my brave face on and go to the zoo with him and I can have a tarantula close encounter and show him that these are lovely animals.
You can ask Craig about that. He loves the tarantulas.
Yeah, I'm if I hope, and so it was a challenging day for the chair to go into the Hero HQ and get incredibly close to a tarantula. Hi, Jenny.
So lovely. They're lovely.
They are. They're beautiful.
Councillor Foon.
I just saw we've got a little bit of sneaky time left, so I'll get you all off the tarantulas. Karen, is there anything, I think what we're seeing, this collaboration between all the CCOs, is there anything more that council could be doing to support this to become, I mean, it might have been normal before, I'm a new councillor, but just it really feels a lot more embedded. What can we be doing to support this to be our new normal?
It's really interesting, Laurie. I mean, we all do work together quite a lot. And I mean, we even had some of the Wellington NZ staff come out to help us with our visitors coming in and out of the zoo. So they love that. But what, you know, the CCO CEOs get together, you know, every quarter, and we meet and we talk about initiatives that we have and things like that. And Barbara joined our last meeting, which was fabulous. And so she talked a lot about, you know, her ideas for council going forward and how the CCOs fit into that. I think it's really important that as a chief executive of a CCO, so I'll speak on behalf of myself, is that we are seen as very important to the fabric of the city, you know, and that we are well and truly embedded into any strategic decisions, which is why I really welcome the pandemic plan and us and Zealandia being free, because that showed that we could add value to the city. I think with all of us, we want to add value to the city. So we want to make sure that what we're doing strategically really does align with what you want. So hearing you all talk about sustainability today, as you know, that's something very close to my heart. So if we could all work together to build up strategies like that, maybe more workshops amongst us all, like this committee and the CCOs, and really think about what we could do, you know, with a longer period of time to talk about big meaty issues rather than a reporting meeting, I think would be fabulous, because then you could really understand the depths of some of the things that we do, and we could really start to have conversations with you that could really help us align and add value to what you want for the city.
Thanks, Karen. I think few of us have been struggling with our city vision, which was made in 2011. And that while we are happy with that, it's not wrong, but there's certainly a lot more direction and yeah, there's a lot more opportunity there. So thank you for that. And I will talk to our chair about maybe just touching base with you on what are some ways we could initiate that so it's best value for everybody's time. But I agree, those aligned strategies of contribution would be, yeah, and what better time than now?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Ngā
Thanks for that, Councillor Finn. It's a great question, and thanks, Karen. It's a really great suggestion, and I think it would be a wonderful thing that we can do as City Council starting to lead into the long-term plan, which is a big strategic exercise for us to really be integrating the CCOs into that really fully, and find ways to do that better. So I really look forward. I know we've got staff on the call, and look forward to figuring out how we can do that so that we're collaborating and aligning really well together.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, Karen and Craig, for being lucky last. and thank you everyone for being patient. I did sort of allow things to run a little bit long so that we could have a few extra questions around Wellington NZ. So thank you for your patience with that. I am essentially, I have to actually do the general business of moving the officer recommendations before we can leave, everyone. Karen and Craig, we're just doing we're now just doing business. You can, thank you very much. Lovely to see you.
The actual thing we have to perform, Jenny.
Yeah,
we've
I
got
have to
do
do
that,
the,
right,
the
yeah,
actual
okay, good,
dotting the
yeah.
I's and crossing the T's part.
Thanks,
So,
Karen and Craig.
thank you. I move the motion being the recommendations in the officer's report, which was just that we receive the information and note any issues. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Foon. Is there any debate? There being none, I will put the motion to the vote, please. Vote accordingly.
And that's unanimous.
Thank you. Lovely. And so to conclude the meeting, I will read the karakia as per usual. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapanui, kia wātea, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, I te ara takatū. Koia rā I rongo, whakairia ake ki runga, kia wātea, ai rā, kua wātea. Thank you, everyone. I declare the meeting closed. Enjoy your lunch break all, and we'll see you again in an hour.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perfect timing.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jenny. Well cheered. Thanks, Cyrus.
Thank you.